So welcome everybody to the December 9th meeting of the Telecom Advisory Committee. Call to order. I guess for public speak, well, we do have our gentlemen visitors today, but we have our own agenda item for that. Let's just get out of the way. First of all, the approval of minutes. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes that came out last week? Yeah. Is there any motion to, or any changes or alterations?
Accurate.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's approve the minutes. Okay. That being said, let's have, if you guys would introduce yourselves again for the folks watching.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Sean Fitzgerald, and I'm the General Manager for South Hadley Electric Light Department. Go ahead.
Tim Haas, Chief Technology Officer, Holyoke Gas and Electric.
I'm Lee Masters. I'm the Telecom Network Engineer for the town of South Hadley.
Okay. You continue on?
So, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I just want to thank you for having us here. I've been communicating mostly with Tom Peak, and I met with Mayor Nicole LaChapelle. And the reason we're here is just to tell you who we are, what we have to offer as you embark on your potential fiber deployment here. If you do get to the point where you finance it, we are a potential solution for, hey Larry, how are you? Hey. We are a potential solution for you. Just to give you a quick background, I worked for Westfield Gas and Electric for 6 years. I wrote the marketing business plan, and I helped develop and launch Whip City Fiber as it stands today. We have partnered with Holyoke, which I'm going to get into briefly here, and we are a fully integrated ISP solution, just like Whip City Fiber. And Whip City Fiber, which I'm very proud of, I still know a lot of the people who work there, is very similar to what you're going to hear from us about broadband networks. So go ahead, Tim. I'll just run through some of these slides while we go. And feel free to ask me any questions as we go. And just really briefly, myself, I've worked in the power space for 25 years. I worked for ISO New England for 9 years. I worked for the state for Emwick for 2 years, and I worked for Westfield Gas for 6, and now 3 here at Sheld. Tim has 30 years. He's spent probably most of those years at Holyoke building the robust network that they have there.
Last 17 years.
Last 17, and then Lee, and I also have a telecom manager like Tim at Sheld. Lee has worked for Comcast for 20 years, and now he works for us at Sheld. So he's a Metro E technician. He's now our lead engineer. So Tim has a whole telecom division, and now Sheld has our own telecom division as well. Basically, I want to go through briefly, and it won't take too much time, the background between us, Sheld and HG&E, some benefits for you to consider of a municipal network, because I know you have multiple options on the table, and a little bit about us, a little bit about highlights of us. So basically, HG&E has been providing fiber since 1996. Sheld's been providing fiber internet services since 2006. We have combined revenues of $90 million, HG&E being the lion's share of that, but we're combined electric, gas, telecom, $90 million in revenue. Each of us has over 114 years of utility operating experience, very similar to Westfield. And Sheld and HG&E entered into an intergovernmental partnership in 2017. And it's been a great partnership, and we're going to talk about that a little bit here. Some benefits for you to consider as you embark on your decision. The municipal model empowers you, the host MLP, to own fiber plants. So you can go out and hire someone who's going to come in and invest the money in your plant, but they're going to retain that plant and they're going to retain the benefits of that plant. Versus you doing this kind of intergovernmental agreement, it empowers you to own that plant. Local services from MLPs like us, we have top-rated reliability stats and behind us, as does Westfield and others. There's a lot of cost savings where if you were to hire an MLP like us to be your internet service provider, we would be able to optimize our shared resources. So Tim's resources our resources would be put to work for you. It would be a cooperative type model, if you will, where we're an extension of your staff. And that's the way it works for us with HG&E as well. You get a lot of personalized attention because the shelled HG&E model, we're focused on density, not just a large footprint. We want to go after towns like yourself, okay? You're a dense town. You have a very similar background to South Hadley. We don't want to have a whole lot of towns. We want to have a few dense towns. Fibersonic.com is our brand, and it's a service that's scalable for any host MLPs like yourself, just like Whip City Fiber. The thing is about Fibersonic.com is it's a registered trademark, and it's a brand that's operating and functioning right now in South Hadley. And ultimately, the biggest benefit for you as you embark on this decision is competition drives the incumbent provider prices down. We're seeing this in South Hadley already. It happened in Westfield when we were launching there. Comcast would come in. As soon as we start being successful, all of a sudden the offers start dropping, right? So now they're offering $59 bundles, which they weren't doing prior to us launching Fibersonic. Next slide, please.
Can I just clarify?
Sure.
Fibersonic is essentially kind of like your branding of the service?
Correct.
Okay.
So we actually have a website, fibersonic.com, and that's, if you look at Lee's shirt right now, that's a shelled service, and so we're a full brand, if you will. Yeah.
Powered by
Shelled is the tag. So I'm going to let Tim take over here. Go ahead. He's going to talk about the HG network a little bit here.
bunch of circles. But as you can see, it's really about it's cored around Holyoke. So our electric substations are strategically located around the city. So when we built the fiber ring back in 1997, that was the original purpose, was to interconnect our substations along with city buildings and schools. So they naturally, our fiber ring landed in our active telecom huts landed in our substation areas. We initially had a point-to-point from Holyoke to downtown Springfield for our internet connectivity. We've since leased fibers from what used to be Fiber Tech, is now Crown Castle, 2 fibers around the Springfield ring that basically emanate out of West Holyoke through Westfield Agawam, one of our points of presence in downtown, down to 1 Federal Street. If you guys have ever heard that, 1 Fed, the Carrier Hotel here in Western Mass. And then back in through Chicopee, and we use Chicopee fibers. We have a partnership with Shell and Chicopee. So we're able to utilize both South Hadley fibers and Chicopee fibers to complete rings using private fiber and not leased fiber. These fibers, for instance, are by IRU, indefeasible right of use, and there's no charge on those. Those are basically our fibers forever, even though they're on Crown Castle's network. We also got connections. Chicopee's got some college net fiber, so we utilize that to provide another protection leg. And then to hook up Fibersonic to complete we're completing their ring with fibers that are already on the pole. So we're working with South Hadley, 5 College Net, Crown Castle, and HG&E to make the connections back into Holyoke's network. This little lobe out here is another Crown Castle piece. It's really an extension of the same Crown Castle ring. The reason I point this out is if for some reason down the road that Easthampton decides to go into the broadband business and decides to do business with HG&E and Shell, our transport is already in place. So this leg here, this is our POP at what we call our Oakdale POP. It's on Beach Street. That comes up across 141 and then down all the way the stretch of Route 10, and then loops back around in Northampton up to Route 5 to pick up what we call our Highland substation. So these fibers, we currently transport Easthampton Savings Bank across that right now. But if your pops were along this route of 141, Route 10 in this area, we could simply bring laterals off that, interconnect the pops, and your connectivity is already built. So if you were to partner with us, the infrastructure transport you back into this infrastructure and get you into what we call our service routers, where your customers would connect, which then in turn comes back into the gateways that connect into the internet. We're also going to have planned for 2020, we're going to have a third internet drain out of here along with a third gateway. A couple of key points with these gateways: we've got mountain full internet IPv4 and IPv6 capability. We also have DDoS mitigation system, distributed denial of service. So this is blanket protection across our entire infrastructure. They're front-ended on our gateways before they hit the internet, and basically it's a dynamic DDoS managed service. We pay a security operations center to manage those devices and mitigate attacks for us. So basically all of our engineers sleep a lot better at night knowing that we've got automatic DDoS mitigation. It's a big deal, and that's the reason I bring it up, because it's basically blanket protection for any customer that connects into the whole back end.
And the reason that we've partnered with them, one of the major reasons,
we spend millions of dollars in infrastructure and staffing and all the things that that are required to make an ISP work. Number one, being a legacy MLP, being around for 100 years, the number one priority is reliability and performance. Is there any questions on the network?
Not specifically on this, and it may come up later in the presentation, or I missed it earlier. If we did partner with you, would you extend Sheld and HD&E service as Easthampton as customers, or would we continue with the formation of our own MLP and we would become a partner with you like Sheld is?
Well, you got a choice, I think.
you do. I mean, it's your choice. You can create your own brand. Some of the hill towns have done this with Lip City Fiber. Otis has done this. They created their own little website. But the engine behind it is Lip City Fiber, their network operations. In our case, the network operations is Holyoke Gas and Electric. They're our network operator. Mm-hmm. But what I would say to you, what I would advise you is that I would choose a brand that exists, right? So if you can just scale FiberSonic, you can be an add-on to the FiberSonic brand. The brand was built to be expandable, so that you can say to all your customers in Easthampton, hey, we've partnered with HG&E and Shell, and FiberSonic is going to be our brand. Now, you can choose to do your own, but there's cost associated with that. We've paid the cost of building the brand, trademarking it. We paid all the legal costs, building the websites, having an intellectual property that drives this whole sales engine, if you will. Mm-hmm. And those are really the benefits of jumping onto a brand like that.
But the MLP, the Easthampton MLP, would still own the fiber plant and the access electronics. So if you stand up a point of presence or a shelter with electronics in that, Easthampton, the town, it would be town property, along with all the fiber optic cables and all the boxes on the sides of the house.
Yeah, that was my question. If we would still need to pursue an Easthampton MLP, or if you would sign a partnership with the city and extend your MLP's presence, because I know you can extend to neighboring communities with an agreement.
The easiest vehicle to do that, though, is the intergovernmental agreement.
Correct.
Yeah, I was under the impression that all cities that want to operate under the everything that comes when you are a MLP, you need to actually go through that process, even if you end up contracting out for the actual infrastructure. The operations, like the end decisions, need to be done by the city,
Yep.
Well, right, so there has to be some sort of municipal entity that owns the
Yeah.
physical infrastructure.
Correct.
The question is, is that a one-person shop that is just like, or it's even like the city?
If you've partnered with Shell and HG&E, it probably is a one-person MLP manager.
Yeah,
Just to manage
let me give you
contracts.
an analogy that'll make sense to you. You've heard of Wired West, right?
Yeah.
Wired West didn't work because the consortium of Wired West, the people that made up Wired West, wanted to own all the plant and be the owner as a cooperative. And MBI said, no, you can't do that. So each MLP has to retain the ownership. And so, to your point, you would retain the ownership of everything. We're just acting as an ISP on your behalf, which you can fire. If our contract is up at 5 years and you say, I'm tired of working with these guys, they're not giving me the service, they're out and go hire another ISP. I'll be honest with you, the only difficult problem with that is if you start with Fibersonic, the brand has a lot of weight behind it. It helps you get the sales out there. You have the marketing behind it. So if you choose to do your own brand, you can do so, but it comes with an expense. So it's kind of that decision you have to make. If you partnered with someone like us, do I want to go forward with this brand? Do I want my own brand? It can be done either way.
I kind of feel like, just judging from the discussions that have gone on like online and other places, I feel like part of what Easthampton wants is to be its own network and not like need to like play with like another
Sure, partner.
Yeah, partner. So I think in
Where are you
that
gonna get the money now?
I didn't mean to derail the presentation.
Oh, that's okay. No.
This is good discussion.
It's good. Well, can I respond to that?
Yeah, sure.
And I think the way you're thinking is wise, because if you have your own, it's great. But the reality is having your own is really expensive. And I'm going to put up a chart here, and I'm going to show you all the things you need to do.
Oh.
And you certainly, if you can do it on your own, I give you a lot of credit, because we're doing it on our own with a little bit of help, and it's a real big thing. It's a real challenge.
And that's coming from a legacy MLP that's been around in the electric business 100 years.
Right. And so even with our experience and our linemen and doing the work, it's challenging. And I launched Whip City Fiber, and I was, it was difficult then, it's difficult now, but you can do it. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's, it's something to think about.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So Fibersonic, is that providing a portal for customers to do things like billing and customer support and stuff like that?
Yeah, and so I have some slides up here. We do.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I'll just tell you that we do all the billing,
Yeah.
marketing, customer service, support. Everything is built into that. So we are a turnkey, full solution that can provide you every bit of service you have. Now, we do have vendors. We have a help desk vendor called Netegrity. We have a relationship with them. We would continue. They're great. They're Calyx certified. They can see right into the router and solve customer problems. So we would manage all those relationships for you. But yes, yeah, to answer
If
your
I could
question.
just add, being a lineman over there myself, and I live in town here, the customer relationship, we're out there all the time. And it's an extension of what Sean wants. We go out there, we're getting asked questions all the time. And of course, Lee's out there too. But they've asked a ton of questions. I have to carry a thing with me to answer some questions, but the final thing is if they can't make their mind up, we have a beautiful area set up down at the shop.
Streaming. We have a streaming
Yeah,
center.
which usually makes their mind up then, and you've had a lot of people come in and say, okay,
Yeah,
but we're an extension of customer services. We're linemen, we're part of the company there, and I think it's good for Sean to have us out there and telling people this is the way to go, and it's a gold standard, and people are, from what I've talked to, like it so far, so.
Yeah. You want to go ahead next slide? That's you.
Okay, this is just, I'm not going to go through everything on here. We'll send you the slide deck. We've been HG&E has been serving residential broadband for a very short time. So the bulk of our business over the last 20 years has been built on business, institution, large enterprise. We do not do fiber to the home or residential service in Holyoke today. We've gone through the numbers a number of times over the years, and unlike South Hadley, we can't get the numbers to work in our favor from a business plan perspective, and it's one of the other things that you'll find with legacy MLPs, very, very conservative about where and how and when they spend their money. However, we've been approached, it started in 2013, we were approached by the town of Leverett. And then we started getting further engagement. So basically in a short time frame, we're now working with, in some capacity, over 9 towns, and whether they're ISP or we're a network operator or we help them project manage. Bottom line is, in a short amount of time, we've got a tremendous amount of experience in the residential ISP broadband business.
What's the Chicopee project? Is that residential or something?
Yes, it is. They just like, they've got a new brand similar to FiberSonic. It's called Crossroads Fiber. And they're doing the same thing. They're hitting target areas, doing build outs, doing pre-sale, working on moving on to the next one. Much larger terrain to deal with in Chicopee than in South Hadley. South Hadley and Easthampton are pretty comparable from a demographics perspective. But so this is just a slide deck to show you that we've got a lot of involvement here in a very short amount of time and been pretty successful.
And just to get into it, so our tagline is homegrown gig speed internet. That's our brand. It's an $11 million investment in South Hadley for all customers. We've committed, our board, our municipal light board has committed $11 million and authorized us to deploy fiber for the entire town. To your point, we do all the marketing, sales, billing, engineering, installations, construction, and project management, all done at Sheldon. We have a team there. The network management and the transport network, which you saw, is all done by HG&E.
Which we've got a staff of 15,
Yeah.
just in telecom.
Yeah. And so we work really well together. And we have over 2,000 customers out of our 8,000 that have expressed interest on our website in under 1 year. And so that is a huge success right now. Next slide.
I have a quick question about
Yes, sir.
that. Where did the $11 million come from?
So we borrowed we're borrowing the money from our reserve trust account, which is the electric side of the business.
Oh, okay.
But
So because it's been an MLP for a while, it had the reserves.
we had reserves. However, the catch is we have to pay that back.
Right.
You can't take that money and just use it. You got to pay it back. And so we
Investment is a zero interest.
zero interest, right? And so we were fortunate. We have zero debt. Our power supply and nuclear assets are paid for, $55 million. And so we had this money in reserve trust. We're borrowing it and we're paying ourselves back.
Got it. Based from revenue.
Well, that's over years of revenue. Yeah. And the reserve trust really is a rainy day fund for your electric business, so that if something goes haywire, you have the money to, if your nuclear assets blow up and you need to replace them, literally it's going to cost you millions on the open market. Okay, great question though. And our outlook is that there's a municipal light plant trend for fiber deployment in the United States and in Massachusetts. There are multiple MLPs doing this very same thing right now as we speak. You're going to see them pop up everywhere. Ownership is growing at the MLP level. The internet is evolving into a utility. And incumbent plants like you have here in this town are slow to non-existent on upgrades. They're not investing the money that we're investing in fiber optics. And that brings me to the next point, which is fiber is infinitely scalable, it's future-proof. You've heard of the term Internet of Things. Each home device are growing by tenfold each year.
Just count the devices in your own home.
TVs, vacuum cleaners, thermostats, refrigerators. That bandwidth is getting gobbled up. And so what's going to happen is that brick wall of bandwidth is coming to every home in the United States. And it's coming faster than people think. And so the towns that are investing in fiber like South Hadley are going to be future-proof. Because we just swap out the equipment and we go from 1 gig to 10 gig to 20 gig at any point. The big thing I want to point out to you is the return on investment, or your payback for this $11 million investment, is reliant on your take rate. And the take rate is the largest challenge. It is the biggest risk, and competition is real, but it's not insurmountable. I'm competing right now head-to-head with Comcast. And I'll tell you, if you have the right partners, you can succeed. Your take rate can be effective. But you got to know what you're doing, and you got to compete with them. And it's a forever struggle. Once you get into this business, it's forever.
Can you say what your projected break-even point is for take rate?
I can't divulge that here in a public meeting, but I can tell you that we're confident that we're going to hit our projected levels. I would love to, but I shouldn't. But I feel confident. I'll tell you that the industry standard, they will tell you when you launch a business like this, is they say you'll hit 15%, right? Good is 20%. Very good is 30%. Excellent is 40%. Outstanding is 50%. And that's a take rate. So if you have 8,000 customers and you hit 4,000 customers, that is outstanding. You know, probably the norm across the country is probably like 15 to 20% on a take rate. You know, and here's the thing about municipal light plants. A lot of them don't do marketing well. Right? They don't know what they're doing with marketing. Most don't. And Tim knows some of them. What I feel great about is the marketing at Whip City Fiber was done right. The marketing that we're doing at FiberSonic is done right. And these are all the decisions that you have to make as an ISP, right? And you're in the red bubbles right now, right? So initial research, risk assessment, commitment, and financing. Those are the biggies, right? That's where you are. We've been in your shoes. You know, once you figure that out, then you've got to pick someone to do all these other blue bubbles. You got to do project management, staffing, marketing, sales, billing, facilities, procurement, engineering, and design, right? Fiber construction, installations, network management. I mean, there's a million of those decisions. Those are just the key ones.
And those are big. Each one of those bubbles are big tasks. Huge tasks.
And so my point to you all is that we know where you're at. We've been through what you're going through. And I've been through it twice now. And we feel that we have a good solution with our partnership at Holyoke. So as you get further down the path and you consider an MLP provider, we'd like to have you consider us as a potential solution. And just to give you a little visual, here's how similar you are to us. Your population is within 1,000 thereabouts. Your electric customers are very close, right? We pulled this from Eversource. I have an Eversource engineer who works for me. Your land area is...
It was a poll survey.
Poll surveys we know about those. They're difficult, right? Density, you know, look at your density. You actually have more density, which we like. Yeah, we like density. And your overhead circuit miles are almost identical. Your number of poles are almost identical. And so, and your demographics are very similar to South Hadley. And so, when we compare you, we say, oh my God, you know, they're very similar, and that's a good thing.
South Hadley is, you said Comcast, right? Is the
Comcast, yeah.
So that's one big difference is Charter here.
Yeah, and
is it that big a difference?
Yeah, they suck.
I lived in a Comcast city for almost a decade, and and the dissatisfaction here is considerably higher.
Right.
Interesting.
Anecdotally, yeah.
I lived in Westfield
people
before
aren't shy
this.
about sharing their opinion.
Yeah, there seems to be pretty
I don't
universal.
think anybody in Westfield likes Comcast. You know, that was my 10-year experience.
Yeah.
So I view them both as the same.
It seems a little more something here.
Well, it is the same technology, so a lot of the things that are inherent with the HFC, it's going to be consistent because a lot of them are using the same products and the same type of systems. And
We got coaxial cable in town. I live in the northern part of town, and my TV is constantly stopping, and it's ridiculous. You know, it's horrible.
Well, I was gonna ask
We can
about,
only take so much.
how they respond when they heard that South Hadley was gonna embark on this.
Sure.
Their,
So they haven't officially responded.
Yeah.
However, I do know that what they have done in some towns is they look for opportunities to, and they've done this, they put out materials that say it's a huge risk, you're using ratepayers' money and it's crazy. And what they don't do is point out all the successes across the nation. And so, you know, and so they will point out towns like Burlington, Vermont, right, it were a disaster. And I've read that research paper and what they did wrong. Everything they say what to do is the way we're doing it. And so, you know, they do try to find opportunities to poke holes at your plan. But we're confident in what we're doing over there. And, you know.
And they wouldn't be responding as such if they didn't feel it was a threat.
That's right.
right. Yeah, I mean, in terms of not necessarily a direct response,
Oh, sure.
but just how are they changing their marketing? How are they changing their
Great
offers?
question, yeah.
How are they,
They are.
you know, how are they, what kinds of outreach are they doing directly to South Hadley customers?
So they've dropped their bundle price to $59. But they don't do that in the other towns, right? So why is that? So all of a sudden South Hadley ratepayers get a better deal, which, is that right? You know, it's not really, but they're dropping the bundle, they're putting ads out, and that is a good benefit. You know, it's one of my bullets right here. I mean, it drops the price for all ratepayers. You know, they put out articles that kind of slam these kinds of things that they're not going to be successful, but they are successful. But the other thing is that the streaming solutions that are out there are so developed now that people are cutting the cord in droves now. But without the bandwidth, you get pixelation, you get buffering, and so
All the evils, right?
Yeah, all the things.
Those are the evil things.
So what we want our town to have is none of that, and we want it to be scalable, and then we want our bandwidth to be superior.
What are the plans in South Hadley?
I'm sorry.
What is the what's the rate and speed that
Oh, sure.
could residential
Sure.
customers are getting?
Yeah. So residents can get a gig, symmetrical gig for $70.
Okay.
Ask another question.
That's all we sell is a gig.
Is just that one
Straight
plan?
up gig.
Cool.
Yeah.
We have another similarity in that you have a private institution in Mount Holyoke and we have Williston here.
Correct.
How is Mount Holyoke working with you, or are they working at all with you?
We're in discussions, actually. I think we're waiting on our first appointment, or we're gonna wait after the
Yeah.
holidays or something like that to get a feed in there.
Yeah, we are in discussions to get a feed in there. The unique thing about Mount Holyoke and Smith, it's the 5 college net, right? So, yeah, they're
There's
all.
lots of hooks in there with the university college
Yeah.
system, and it makes it difficult for new entrants to get into that.
Yeah, and they already have,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
when better speeds and we've ever.
It's more about their part of the town.
Sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're
Yeah.
probably like what, you know, as we think about this,
Right.
we're thinking, what does Williston have? Are they going to want to come on board? Are they going to play any role in this?
It's certainly possible, because we did that VoIP solution for the Mount
Commons.
Holyoke satellite office.
Right.
That was the first entry
Right.
into that.
So what I've experienced personally is if you build it, they will come. And what happens is they say, holy mackerel, you know, this is what's happening to us. Businesses are calling us every day when they find out what they can get and the prices. And the prices are at the business level are much less than what they're paying, you know, a big provider.
We're seeing our average Comcast small business bill between $300 and $400 a month. That's, for a small business, that's pretty unaffordable.
Yeah, we charge $149 for a full gig. And so, yeah, and you know, it scales up depending on their size. If it's enterprise, then it's special quote. You know, but we're still beating them on the price.
Wait, so the 145, that's like a dedicated gig as opposed to for the residential, that's like a shared gig?
It's, the residential is a full gig, and the business is a full gig. The reason the price is higher for the business because there's more support, there's more activity that the network operator has to do, so it's priced higher.
Yeah, but I'm assuming that that the gig is a shared gig, and so everyone like gets on and tries to download something that's like exactly like a gig, and like it's not gonna.
So if a good analogy would be the telephone network, the standard phone network. The busiest time on the standard telephone network is Mother's Day. Why is that? Well, everyone wants to call their mom, right? And so it's the busiest phone day of the year, and you get busy signals because the way the phone system is built is there's way many more phones out there than there are interconnecting lines that connect them all, right? So it's basically an aggregation, and internet is no different. So the more load that you get, so if say you move from, say you've got 1,000 customers and they each use about 4 meg. So you need about 4 gig of bandwidth to carry that load. So as an ISP and operator, you're monitoring those levels to make sure that you've got headroom, and you've got an average utilization, then you've got headroom for those peaks so people want to burst to a gigabit. So ultimately, even though that gig is not individually available to every single subscriber, it is available to anyone who wants to use it when they need to use it.
It's almost the same thing we run into electric problems in the summertime with air conditioners.
Exactly.
We always have a...
Yeah, but our plant is all green build, and it's overbuilt in my opinion, you know,
Yeah, and it was kind of what we're doing, because I think that there are towns that like provide like a dedicated gig.
Yeah.
To some
Correct.
services.
Yeah.
We do
Ethernet.
provide both.
Yeah.
We do provide both.
Has anybody approached you guys about tiered service and on these rollouts, you know, doing something less than a gig?
Very rarely, and in Westfield, we did this tiered service as
Right.
well, and there was only like less than 3% took it. So everybody wanted the best. So we trashed it, we threw it out because, you know, it wasn't worth it. And you know, a lot of companies will do that so that they can upsell you, right? Where we just said, we're gonna give you the best. But it happens, but it's a small percentage.
And we're also seeing a shift where it's not about measuring bandwidth, it's about what can I do, right? Can I stream my movies? Can I get at my Nest camera? Does my Wi-Fi responsive when I want it to be responsive? Gig is a term, but if we look at how the electric industry is evolved, it's really been, you pay your electric bill based on how much you use, right? I can ultimately see the internet moving to a more sustainable model, pay for what you use. We're not there yet, and society is not even mentally.
Well, mobile is.
Right,
That's
exactly.
really pay what you use.
Exactly. So how we got into this with fixed line, not really sure, but at some point, the industry's got to come out of it.
Yeah.
But it's much more efficient for your operator and your ISP to just deliver one service. And so you're talking about billing and tiers, and those are all going to your marketing costs, and it adds on when people, all they really want to do is they want to plug in and here's my Netflix.
No, do you do any bundling of like voice over IP service, or do you include that in, or is that anything?
Yeah, and so really that's kind of an add-on. So just like home security or anything like.
So we're offering voice though in the second quarter of this year.
So Shell is partnered with a third-party VoIP provider. So essentially, they'll sign a contract. HG&E will help Shell get the hooks in place and get all the connectivity in place, and drive it down into the access platform and voice services.
We've just, we've already had our kickoff meeting. We've been testing this for 2 months. So we'll be actually offering this to customers probably in the next 2 months.
And it'll be branded FiberSonic.
It'll be under FiberSonic bill. FiberSonic bill, yeah.
So how does business-wise, if an MLP partners with FiberSonic, what's that arrangement look like? Is it a revenue share? Is it a flat fee for service?
Are you talking between us and Hoyok, or are you talking about
Easthampton and FiberSonic?
Let's say if it...
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
So, when I had to make these decisions that you're making now, I looked at Westfield Gas and Electric as my full solution. So I wouldn't hire any of these guys, and I just pay them to do it. The way that they proposed was that we pay a per subscriber fee. So if you sell for $70, you got to pay them 25 or 30, whatever that fee is. That is likely how your structured offer from us would be. There would be additional costs for engineering, project management, marketing, billing, etc. And those can be, I'm sorry, the marketing, billing, those are all bundled into your per subscriber fee. I would say to you, if you're not wanting to do that and you want to own this and operate it, I applaud you. But it's brutal. I want to tell you, it's brutal to build this business. You can do it. There's models out there. We're doing it, but we've done it because we have 2 utilities. He has got an $8 million ring transport layer. I got a staff of linemen that can go up and do make-ready work, and so it's unique what we're building on the backs of the utility. But great question. It's usually a per subscriber fee.
We're lucky because we're an investor owned, and we've been around since what, 1940.
You mean municipally owned?
Municipally owned, yes. So we've already had the line crews there, and Sean came over, and it's just an extension of what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the fiber guys come in, we work great with the fiber guys, and everything's been going, from what I see, pretty smooth.
Yeah. And in conclusion, I'll just tell you, reiterate, we understand the difficult decisions that you're faced with. We've been through the entire process. It's rough. We understand it. We're here for you if you need us, whether you choose us or not, give me a call. Shelled HG&E MLP model helps reduce all of our costs. You're our neighbors, helps us reduce our neighbors' costs versus increasing shareholders' earnings. Okay, we're not a shareholder organization. The money that we earn gets reinvested back into our plant, or it goes to owners like you, municipal owners. You gain the expertise of 2 reputable MLP utilities with us. Okay, you don't just get 1, you get 2 with our partnership, and we have significant ISP experience. Holyoke with theirs and now with ours in the residential space. We work seamlessly together with HG&E Network. It's robust, and we have a great relationship with them. And intergovernmental agreements reduce costs and increase benefits for MLPs. It's a cooperative model. It's, when we first went at this, we sat with Westfield, Holyoke, Chicopee, and South Hadley, and we said, maybe we should just do all of us a cooperative. But that's a challenge. Everybody's at different points in times, and so that's a challenge.
Different philosophies. Even within neighbor MLPs,
Right.
You'd be amazed at just the difference in philosophy and the way things are.
And I just want to click on this YouTube video and show you, this just shows you a little bit about us. We did this for our brand, give you a little flavor for us, who we are, and a little bit of the marketing that we're doing.
This is FiberSonic, homegrown gig speed internet right here in South Hadley. From tablets and smartphones to media players and smart speakers, our homes are filled with devices that need a strong internet connection. Our 1 gigabit speed for upload and download allows everyone in your household to use all the latest devices without any lag or buffering.
These are Shell employees, actually.
You can browse the
Really?
Yeah, he's a lineman, John. Those are his kids. Yeah.
share selfies, or even ask that new robot friend if the Apple
We do everything
fridge is still edible.
in-house as much as we can.
1 to 2 weeks after opening.
And South Hadley is our home too. FiberSonic is powered by South Hadley Electric Light Department, the public power utility that's been accountable
There's
for
Larry.
families.
Sitting right over there.
Oh, that's when we did that.
That's our streaming center. That's our website.
Which will help us determine where to continue our construction building.
That's our process.
Local support, local commitment, local ownership. This is FiberSonic, homegrown gig speed internet. It's your gig.
It's the first time I saw that.
Really? Oh, man. You're in it.
Well, I know we're doing a lot of things, but...
He's gonna want to raise now.
It's coming up in a few months. We won't even talk.
He's a union guy, so he's got to talk to his union rep. No, but I appreciate your time. I just wanted to let you know who we are, what we are, the partnership we have, and we are an option for you, and a good one at that. And you have any other questions, let me know.
Yeah, I got another question. Do you have any relationship with any public television networks, like public access television?
That's a fair question. Yeah.
Yes, so South Hadley has a public access television, and we can stream on that. You don't have to worry about it, because you can most of these public access television channels can now just stream over
I
the
think
internet.
the question that's come up here is that our Easthampton Media gets PEG funding from the from Charter.
Right.
And in
To run
cutting
the
the
channel.
cord, we're reducing the revenue of, so have you set up any exchange where the MLP is in any way able to donate to the local access station to keep, to offset
Yeah.
the reduction in funding?
Not as yet, but the town administrator brought it up in a meeting recently, and, they're coming. They're gonna want that payment in lieu of what they were previously getting. So the reality is, we have to be a little bit more successful before we can entertain that. We have to, but if it's for funding specifically for the channel, it's not necessary, because you can set up a streaming solution with ourselves that you don't need to pay for that staff per se if you need it. But it's a timing issue. They're going to want money from us. We pay, for example, MLPs right now, like Hoyok Gas and Electric, us, others, we pay the town a payment in lieu of taxes amount every year. And so that is probably going to go up as this is more successful. But it hasn't been resolved yet, to answer your question.
Yeah, we were wondering if that payment in lieu of part of it could be earmarked for,
Could.
Yeah,
certainly. You could structure it that way, that as your project is successful, you can earmark money to pay back the town. And if your project is very successful, then, you can do a lot more. It depends. The struggle you're going to be faced with is, if you were to partner with us, the reality is your payback's going to be longer than ours, right? But if you don't go with us and you build it all internally, your expenses are probably going to be a lot higher, because you got to start from scratch. So that's the dilemma that you're probably facing, as you make. Or the third option, which is you hire a for-profit organization to come in and invest the money, but you got to find someone who's willing to do that. And so if they're willing to do that, that's another option for you. We had that at South Hadley with Axia, and they went bankrupt. And so that whole thing blew apart. And then we had to spend 2 years untangling legal commitments, which I spent 2 years doing.
Jeez.
And I had to pay legal costs for it. So you got to be careful when you get into these agreements that you choose a partner that isn't, going to be out of business in 2 years.
One of the things too that just touch on is that question you asked about public access. You can also, in lieu of that, you can bring a fiber gig network into all your city buildings. And it's already, you have the network, it's already there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you'll give your town hall, your schools, they'll all have gig access, which I doubt they have now, Even Williston, they're not on any sort of ring that I know of, and I know a lot of rings out here, and they're not on any of them. So, that comes into play as you build your network. It's not just about your residents, it's also about the town too. You're bringing a gig into your library, you're bringing a gig into your schools, at a relatively low cost than if you were to just do it, just bringing a gig into your,
We had a lady who was running it was really worried about losing the program itself because no money's coming in,
Yeah. I doubt the service provider in town brings a gig into their schools, your town hall, or anything like that.
Right.
Which thus allows the schools to develop things. I brought a gig for a different company into Smith. And that allowed them to deploy Chromebooks through the whole school to all the students, give them all guest networks, and you can move through the school with ease on the internet. There's no delay. It's pretty cool. All the students have these Chromebooks that they just do all their work on. And they walk in the building, they sync right up. It's that's all stuff you can do when you have this bandwidth in town.
Yeah, and I think the position of the city at this point is that no one's looking to get rich off this.
Right.
It's a thing. If you look at the results of our election, it was overwhelming. It was probably the single most overwhelming ballot question that's ever happened in the city or potentially all of Hampshire County. It was crazy.
That's great. Right.
I think over 80% of voters said that they want to be
Right.
MLP. So
Right.
I'd have to check that again, but
It was
that's
81%.
right? Yeah.
81%.
So the idea is that the voters want it. I don't think the mayor or the city council are necessarily looking at this as like, oh, I think we're going to get these huge pilot payments off of or whatever.
Right.
And given that we don't have that legacy, we might be able to work out a different arrangement there.
Yeah.
But the one thing that there is a big concern on is that we have this PEG station that has 4 or so
Right.
employees.
Right.
And currently, the big telecoms are working with the FCC to gut them and take
Right.
away all of their revenue.
Right.
And the damage that would do to our local democracy if that sort of organization ran out of funds. So it's like, oh, well, if we're doing this whole thing,
Right.
we're doing it because the voters want it.
Right.
But if there's some way that we could send a little bit of, money
Right.
to a relatively small organization, that
Right.
might be a really good situation.
Well, I just want to address something you said, it's really important. Our municipal light board, which is 5 municipal people, their directive to me is that this becomes a utility, that it's a public service, that it's not about making money, it's about adding value to South Hadley. And they believe that. And so I'm going to try and do everything in my power to make it successful, but their directive is to just do this because it's the right thing to do for the town.
Right.
And that's their position on it. And it's very similar. And I think the situation you described with that channel, you could probably figure out how to solve this problem.
Right.
Right, but you'd have to sit down with whoever you hire to be your ISP and figure that out, and you could hammer that out and negotiate it. I think that could be resolved. You just gotta sit down and figure it out.
I have a question about, because we've been looking at different models for this,
Yeah.
is your municipal light board elected or appointed?
Elected, all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Ours is
staggered,
Yeah.
2 and 3 year terms.
Who
Yeah.
appoints the mayor or the council?
The mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have kind of a wonky question for you. You mentioned the Crown Castle ring through Springfield, and that it's 0 fee because of indisputable right of way. I might be.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
I hadn't heard of that before. And what is that?
when FiberTech 20 years ago wanted to build a fiber ring in Western Mass, they had to go through Chicopee, they had to go through Holyoke, and they had to go through Westfield.
Yeah.
So Chicopee, Holyoke, and Westfield said, no problem, you can run fiber in our town, or you can have fiber in our town, but we're gonna own it and we're gonna lease it back to you. So in each town, FiberTech has an agreement that leases 72 strands from coast to coast, border to border.
Same
As
thing.
part of that overall agreement, it was negotiated to have 2 strands per each municipality in that entire ring.
Got it.
And so as long as that agreement is in place, we have the access to those strands.
Got
And
it.
so in South Hadley, we have 4, because they did the same thing with the 5
Five
college
college
net.
net.
Got it.
And so it's called an indefeasible right of use, and it's usually 25 years. And so, but what's the beauty of that is we actually have 4 fibers direct into one federal right now.
So I know that Crown Castle has stuff going through Easthampton too. Do we know do we know about that agreement? No. Okay. So that would be worth.
But see,
finding out.
that's through our agreement. The reason we have access to these 2 strands on this is it's still part of that
Yeah.
agreement.
Oh, okay.
Right, but we're
It
wondering.
looks broken here only because Crown Castle doesn't have assets. We manage the assets in our
But it
territories.
goes
So
through.
this was
Right.
each municipality had that agreement?
No,
Or-
no, only the ones I believe that had municipal light
went through
plants.
those and went through those towns. Yeah. So
So you got 5 municipalities.
That's correct. So Agawam, they just got pole leases and attached to the poles.
See, yeah,
Northampton, same thing, pole leases attached to the poles.
Because what I had thought was that the Crown Castle that was running through Easthampton was just owned by them, and that was,
It is.
Yeah, and it's just
That's 100% theirs.
Right.
It's just because of our municipal agreement, we've got access to
Got it.
strands that go outside of Holyoke.
yeah, and we
Thanks for
all,
clarifying.
yeah, they all own their poles and we own our poles mostly, and so that is a game changer as well.
But this is a substantial cost savings. We've got 80 kilometers here and another, I think, 25 kilometers here that we don't pay a monthly fee for. So it keeps our transport costs down.
Right.
Now we can invest more in the electronics.
And you look at this where we are, and right here, it's very close. We're all very closely connected.
So, in like that infrastructure that's already in place, we could tap into that loop like.
Your two strands in the Crown Castle,
That's
we would
correct.
have access to.
Because this here comes down Route 141, down the mountain, comes up the span through town of Route 10, moves back around the Route 5, and comes back into Holyoke by Route 5 up.
Yeah, so now, if we didn't go with you, would we need to pay for it?
One way or the other.
But if we do go with you, we won't.
We will have a transport charge, but it will be much less because we've got access to fibers already.
Yeah.
There would be an upcharge if we had to lease fibers. And the beauty here is, just by this design that's already in place, you're dual homed.
Yeah.
So you got 2 points of entry in the Holyoke, and then it's ring protected here. This is all sub-second failover stuff too. I mean, it's 50 milliseconds.
We've got a big project at One Ferry coming up, and I know the mayor's expressed interest in getting that. Even that gets up and ready. So be nice if they didn't have to wait.
Yeah. Now, so say that we, I really like a lot of this. But
That's good.
So say that we were to do this sort of partnership. Obviously, at some point you've got the actual physical infrastructure, and then you start setting up a couple. Westfield calls them fiber hoods. I don't know.
Yep, same thing.
It's sort of the obvious. Okay, so if you got
That term came from right here.
Okay, well there you go.
And I didn't make it up, but I'm the one that spun it in Westfield.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we get a couple of those, and then we grow it out or whatever. But there's going to be a point between when we presumably are bonding for this, because we don't, unlike you,
Correct. Yeah.
lucky enough to have
Yeah.
$11 million under a mattress somewhere. So,
Literally, it's not my mattress.
yeah. So we're gonna have to bond for this. But there's going to be presumably a lot of sort of project management work where we would
Correct.
be probably interested in engaging an outside entity.
Yeah.
But obviously we can't. We won't be receiving any revenue for that point. So what would the relationship? What would you envision the relationship looking like over that period of time?
So that's good to ask, because we're going through this right now, right? So we've constructed 5 fiber hoods. Okay, so that's roughly 1,000 passings or very close to it. What I've pushed the organization to do is to market and sell aggressively so that we have revenue coming in for those fiber hoods. And so the way the relationship would work in your town would be the same. My team, if we were hired, would be doing all the marketing and all the selling for your fiber hoods that are constructed. And the intellectual property that we would use, which is Spry Fiber, would identify your entire town nodally by the fiber hoods. So let's say there's 32 like we have.
Right.
So we pick 5 that you're going to go with. We do an interest campaign first to generate interest. People will go to your website, our website, whatever you want to do, and put an interest. And then we can track interest. We know where every bit of interest is coming. I have 2,000 customers right now. I can tell you where the interest is in all these fiber hoods. I can tell you whether one's 80%, 50%, 30%. Right. So then we pick the fiber hoods that you all agree are the ones to construct in first. And then, of course, the make ready work has to be done. That's the biggest hurdle, is the make ready work. But once that's done and you begin constructing and you test that fiber hood and you light it up, then your installers go out and you do installs. All the pre-sales are done by the team at Fibersonic.
Right.
So I have trained people. I've spent a lot of money to have them trained on how to educate customers on streaming, cord cutting. We have a streaming center. They have conversations with people all the time, and they, they don't hard sell. They sell and close the deal. I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think my question was poorly phrased. What I'm more wondering is like when it comes to the make-ready work itself,
yes.
actually getting everything in, getting the fiber on the poles, getting the, they call them the huts, yeah, all of that stuff. What would you envision you guys' roles being in that aspect of the project?
Oh, okay.
Like, would you be like, I'm just interested in what you
Yeah, oh yeah. So I'd envision it the same as what we do today. So we hired Lee here, who's a lead engineer who oversees a lot of this project construction. We have Bob Liswell, who's doing a central office presentation right now to the town of South Hadley Planning Board to construct a second hut, or central office, whatever you call it. So you would gain our expertise in our project management. They would be assigned to manage your project in addition to ours. There are synergies with our experience where, and Tim too, and his team, either of us could do this. We can project manage this deployment. We would have to scale. We would have to hire more because I can't just do it with the limited staff I have. I'd have to maybe add 1 or 2 people, but I would hire 1 or 2 key people. And I would say, okay, you're assigned to Easthampton now. Go oversee and construct. We would do the same that we do for us. We would give you the same quality project management that we have. The more difficult challenge is you have to submit all the pole applications for the make-ready work, go through Eversource. You have Eversource here, right?
Eversource and Verizon on most of the poles.
Right. So you'd have to do that process, which is not insurmountable, but it is more difficult than I just say to the operations manager, go do that make-ready work. So there's more challenges with you guys, but you would have people who understand all that work and can do all that work.
And there's 2 phases to this. You've got the build piece, and then you've got the services piece.
Right.
Yes.
So the way we've framed it in the past, because when you go to the build, you're going to probably bond under Chapter 30, which means that you're going to have union labor, pay prevailing wage, all those legal aspects that you have to deal with. So from our engagement, that's probably a separate professional services arrangement where we manage the project and be your eyes and ears and help with the make ready. And maybe there's a couple of folks that are in town that we coordinate with, whether it's the electric inspector or it's the building inspector or whoever's assigned from the broadband committee who's running the project.
Yeah.
That's all construction one-time stuff that's got to happen, and there's certain state laws that you got to remain under the confines of. But then there's a handoff portion when build portions are done, a fiber serving area or fiber hood is done, where now that's moved from a project management and construction phase to a services phase, and that rolls more into the services intergovernmental agreement where you start the network operation, the monitoring, the billing, and all the services.
And I understand that the second half of that is a fee per subscriber model, but the first part of that, I mean,
would be a percentage of the project. So we'd have to determine what the scope of the project. We'd all have to come to some sort of agreement, and then determine what the percentage of the project.
Would be like a fee for
So this is happening. This is happening right now in the hill towns with Westfield Gas and Electric, right? So what they do, because I was part of the team that I closed on Otis, and I was there at some of these presentations. They go in, they give them 1 sheet for professional services, and they give them another sheet for per subscriber fees.
Yep.
Right. So Joe Parda and the team over there, the guys who construct, they're going to oversee the project. Okay, they're the ones that are going to do that work. We're no different. We got a team now that has deployment experience, and we come in and we give you our professional services cost and our per subscriber cost. It's a very similar model.
Now, if like Easthampton and and the school systems and the community wanted to work on internet innovation projects like doing research and development things in the community, would that be an issue because of the contracts and things like that, or if we wanted to work directly with with you guys and
Yeah.
implement like I don't know like an Internet of Things for the municipal system or something like that. And would that be like any legal issues with that?
So I think that's an internal issue for yourselves because, if you're talking about, are you talking about providing bandwidth to these institutions?
No, I'm more working thinking about working on a partnering. It's probably not that much of an issue, but I'm just thinking if we wanted to implement things on the poles, implement wireless systems, things like that, and could we work with the Easthampton school systems and community organizations in kind of providing internet knowledge to the community, in the process of rolling things out.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I mean, in Westfield, right, what we did is we provided free Wi-Fi during a road race, right? So, in every splash screen that came up brought up Whip City Fiber. And so, what you're talking about is promoting the fact that you're doing this work. You can build that into the marketing costs. It gets expensive though, building these Wi-Fi, right? I mean, you can spend a lot of money.
Well, and at time. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's easy. It takes an hour to put up an access point.
Yeah.
It's going to take you days, weeks, and months to debug all the complaints you get from public Wi-Fi.
Right.
It's just that's the way it is.
I kind of want to return to I'm just trying to grasp the timeline here. So if we were to go for this, the first thing that we need to have, we need to form an MLP.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Then we need to bond
Yeah, that's right.
for
Need the money.
the money.
That's right.
Right, and then part of that money is a fee that gets paid to someone. Maybe
Right, I think in between the forming the MLP and bonding is a big circle in the middle there called the pro forma business plan.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what
Which we did, and we used a consultant, and we did a lot of internal stuff on our own. We built the pro formas, we built the take rates, and you change the take rate, changes the numbers, you add 5 employees, that really changes the numbers, so that has to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
So, form an MLP, come up with a business plan, bring that business plan to the mayor and the city council.
Yeah.
Do the MLPs have bonding power on their own, or would that go through the city?
You have to have a history. So the legacy MLPs that have been around 100 years, you have a legacy. So it's pretty easy to bond at a very low percentage rate.
Right.
There's a lot of
For
them
us, it would have to go
have
through the
AAA bond ratings.
Yeah, ours would have
Yeah.
nothing.
You got no, until you've got some legs
So you have
under
to
you,
go
so
for
a
it.
decade or so after you built up, you got assets and you paid down some of your debt, you could potentially bond as the MLP then. But the city has got to take this on as the first one.
Yeah, and they'll need legal counsel to step them through it. And there'll be costs associated with that as well, just to make sure that you're adhering to the MLP laws.
Yeah, because I don't think that money can legally go to other things in the city.
Right. No, it's got to be used
outside of the pilot or whatever.
Right. Like we can't use that money. We have to pay that money back.
Okay, so form the MLP, business plan, bonding, then if we go with the sort of this option, the idea is that then there's some sort of fee that's paid for the project management and all of that work. Plant gets built, and then when it comes to ongoing services, at that point it switches over to a fee per subscriber.
And I'm getting the sense that you guys are kind of flexible and that you're like, we're interested in being a part of either one or both of those stages. Like
we are. I mean,
I think the latter is where you're really focused.
But the landscape is, to the point, the landscape is evolving. And we've recognized that we need to be flexible to evolve.
Yeah, and to give you an example, I had to make all these decisions, and I didn't know, I was just gonna hire someone to do all this stuff for me. I said, wait a minute, time out. I said, I'm gonna do some of this stuff in-house. And so, like those decisions you're making right now, and so that's how it evolves. You get into it and you go, oh, well, maybe we should bring someone in to work under the town, and you could do that too.
So right now in South Hadley, you're doing in-house marketing, sales, billing, engineering,
Everything on that blue, yep.
Construction, project management.
Yep.
What's your staff size for this part of the project?
We're lean. We have 22 employees total in Shell. I only have 3 dedicated telecom people. Now, if I were...
You gotta include yourself in that.
4. So if but I have people who are split. They can do 2 jobs. Give you an example. I have a marketing person who can do both electric and fiber. And so, but if I was...
Us too.
Yeah, and you guys too, but if I was
We
to...
run the fiber and our own electric stuff, so.
But if we were to come to an agreement and say, you say, we want to hire you for the whole thing, then I would likely go hire a few people that have expertise. Like we found Lee, and we found another Comcast. We've hired 2 Comcast people. I hired a deployment technician from the city of Chicopee. He also had a fiber company of his own. So, one thing I know how to do is recruit. I was a recruiter, and I've hired, and so we'll fill that gap. We can scale. The key is you got to have the websites, you got to have the billing systems, you got to have all those things are in place. And by the way, they're the same things that are in place at Whip City Fiber because I put them in place there. Same exact systems, and you just got to know how to use them.
And you feel this is something you can do concurrently with your build out?
I do. I think that I'm gonna be honest, I can't do more than one town. If we landed a town, we're probably out, tap out, we're done. We're just gonna do that for now and see how we handle it, and just to be upfront with you. But I feel confident in the team that I've built, and more importantly, that I have a partnership with Hoyle Gas and Electric, because he's got a whole telecom division that if we can't do it, he can do it. And that would be, a financial decision we'd have to work out. The reason we're talking to you is because if we were to land a town like Easthampton, the cost for our deployment drops, right? So it benefits us too. You guys get the benefit of having us, but we get the benefit of a cost share. But we'd have to scale a little bit. We'd have to go hire a couple of people.
But you can do it.
Yeah, we could.
Would your line crew be sufficient, or you'd also be looking at expanding, have dedicated fiber linemen, or?
Great question. We have vendors. We have Certex right now, who's a subcontractor that we use for string and fiber. We can have someone like that do some of the work. Give you an example, in Westfield, all the hill towns, they hired Tri-Wire, right? So they did a multi-million-dollar RFP, and they're just managing Tri-Wire now. And so we would have to manage some subcontractors, and we would use some of our linemen. Our linemen are really skilled at this now, and so we could deploy them to your town when we have a day or two. And so it would be a mix. It'd be some subcontractors, it'd be some shelled crew, and we could talk about that with Hoyle Gas.
There's a lot of make-ready work done already. I've already driven around.
Yeah, he's been driving around looking at your poles.
You feel good about it?
Yeah, well, I can't say I've driven around everywhere, but from when I go to work and back,
inches of clearance, Right. And you have good, from our understanding, you have a good setup over here.
I guess anecdotally, another question would be like, say major weather event, if multiple lines were down.
Yeah.
Would we have some assurance that we wouldn't be the end of the list? There'd be mutual, that Shell's lines
so
would
what
go
we-
first.
Service agreements.
Right, so we established what they call MOPS, method of procedures. It basically dictates what we do when. And those MOPS are not developed in a vacuum, they're developed collectively. So we establish, if it's a major equipment failure, it's 4 hours. If it's a major backbone cable break that's in inclement weather, may take a day to get that service restored, depending on where it is. But yeah, so those are developed collectively to ensure that no one is left behind, so to speak.
And I'll just tell you this, it'll be a hell of a lot better than probably what you got.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm telling you, when we get customers to call us up with a complaint, I say to Lee, get in your truck and go over there and stop what you're doing if it's not critical, and Bob too, and our guys are there same day. And people are astounded at that.
Yeah.
You know, because they're not used to it. We can do that because we're in one town.
Right.
You know, 2 towns, you just have.
I remember Comcast
Yeah.
installation was, we'll be there, you know, for new hookups. We'll be there in 9 days, you know.
Well, actually, that brings up another question I had, which is, and this might be too preliminary, but what would you envision in terms of like, you know, you talk about like the streaming presentation room.
Yeah.
Would you anticipate wanting to have a marketing presence like that locally,
You
or
have
would you
to,
want
yeah,
people?
have to.
Yeah.
You can't send people to South Hadley to
No.
take a
You
look
guys
at
should
it.
actually
Yeah,
take a
because
visit to
you're-
that South Hadley Media Room.
Yeah, you have to,
Yeah.
in my
Field
opinion.
trip.
You have to have some
Pretty
kind
cool.
of presence. That will be a challenge though. If your customer service team, you know, do you have someone here collecting payments? You know, most of these payments are online.
Right.
We offer a $5 break for people to sign up and do direct bill. And so almost every fiber customer we have doesn't pay in the office. So we'd have to hammer that out. And to give you an example, Westfield.
It almost seems like you could eliminate an office entirely.
Yeah.
And just say,
I hate to-
Beyond that, like we collect water bills here. I don't see
Yeah.
any reason why we couldn't
Oh,
figure
yeah.
out how to like.
we could train that person.
Yeah.
right.
You know, so just to, I hate to keep referring to Westfield, but in the hill towns, right? They don't have a satellite office in the hill towns. So, you know, all that's managed through the team that I built at Westfield, and they're, you know, they're taking payments over the phone, and they're doing all the billing, and they're doing everything right there at the operations center in downtown Westfield, Elm Street.
Right. And for like customer service and billing, I think that's the marketing is the
Marketing is
one where I feel like you probably need some sort of local presence.
so. Marketing, correct. So, give you an example. Friday night, we went out and did a holiday stroll event. We had the Fibersonic pop-up tent. We have a trailer with TV in it, and so we're there. What I would suggest that we keep the Fibersonic brand and we roll that right over here, and we can do that here as well.
Right by the pond where everybody sees it every day.
You have to be grassroots local to make this work, and you have to do events and come to, you know, road races and push your product and sell it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Does would you be envisioning like would any of this? I mean, because we were just looking through the MLP laws, despite none of us being lawyers, trying to make sense of it all. Like there's stuff in there about cooperatives.
Yes.
Would you be envisioning anything like that, or like is that what this legally would be? Is a cooperative?
Yes, you could set up a cooperative, but the intergovernmental agreement allows us to do business without a cooperative, and that's how we're doing business. We don't have a
And it
cooperative.
actually allows to maintain an autonomous relationship. So
Right.
if we form a cooperative, we're
Yeah,
now
we're bound.
vested,
Yeah.
right? Whereas with the IGA, if Sean says, hey, I don't want you anymore, Holyoke,
Right.
it's a 60-day or a 120-day notice, and you can kick us out the door. It provides you a lot more freedom and flexibility.
So as a light plant, we have cooperatives with Westfield, Chicopee, and Holyoke that exist right now, and we do that on the power side. And so we have cooperatives already. We do them to build power plants all the time.
But, like, you know, with that, I'm assuming that would be a different type of cooperative than like a consumer cooperative, like where essentially the town would be a consumer cooperative because
It would be a cooperative between MLPs.
Yeah, no, the
Right.
the structure always has to be either appointed or elected. It's
Yeah.
not a,
yeah.
That's an MLP cooperative, you got it, it's
Yeah.
MLP cooperative.
yeah, it has nothing to do with the structure of the internal MLP.
Okay, that's interesting.
I have a question for you guys, especially since you've been around for so long and kind of figured out.
Aging us, huh?
Well, no, been doing
That's
this.
a good thing, though.
And
You want experience with
you
it.
did a lot of this in-house. Is like, in terms of the make ready and the build stuff,
Yeah.
what did you discover doing that you wish you had known before you started?
Well, here's the thing, it's probably not an equal comparison simply because South Hadley, Holyoke, Westfield, Chicopee, the electrics own all the poles. So the make
Right.
ready is
So you-
kind of moved.
So you
So
haven't
in Sean's-
dealt with a situation where you
Sean's
don't
case,
own the poles.
the make ready consisted of this. If there wasn't the 40 inches,
You move it.
the electric secondary gets moved up. They don't call the telecom company to deal with any of that make ready.
But I can answer it this way, is that I realized how advantageous of a position we were in, because having that ability to do that makes a big difference. And so that's a consideration for you. And there were times where we have to replace poles. We'd have to send these guys out, short pole, can't get to 40 inches, got to replace it. And you know, there's costs associated with that. And so, you know, but it's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, your pole lease, your recurring pole lease, that's just a number that is gonna be there forever.
And with you, you know, with your town, you know, you're gonna have to go through the application process and managing another company, you know, that's a large company.
Now, did we ever sort out whether we can use that,
With the emergency
lease-
signal.
Yeah.
We're still figuring that out.
Yeah, my understanding is you can't.
Oh, the emergency space?
You're supposed to
The
use it for municipal
Yeah, no,
only.
I looked into this, just so you know.
Northampton ran into a big problem.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, they call it, a lot of places will call it the fire alarm space.
Yeah.
Right? And so I looked into this specifically, and no, it's not the space that you should be using. You should be in the telecommunications space, or if you're a power company, you can be in the power space. But you should not be in that municipal space.
Even if it's just gonna be vacant forever.
Well, you know, it would have benefited us to do that, would have saved us a lot of money, and we could have done it, but the big incumbents will.
Verizon in particular.
They'll bring it to court.
They will
That's
bring it,
what-
they will bring
that's
it
where
out.
Northampton ran into trouble, Verizon.
Greenfield ran into this problem too, and they will bring this out, and they will call it to your attention, and they're watching. And so we did it the right way, and we're doing it the right way, and I would advise you to do it that way.
Have any of these places that you mentioned taken it to court? Because if there's a precedent there, then.
I think Verizon did
Somebody
with
did.
Northampton, I'm pretty sure.
But I mean, has it gotten a decision, or
for a long time.
did they
There was
drop
a
it?
Decision.
You know what, I can get back to you on that.
Okay, because I'm curious, because
Yeah.
it could potentially be millions of dollars difference.
yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
I remember like reading something about that. I have a suspicion that it turned out
in favor of
Well, and the money that you save potentially, these incumbents, the Verizons, they can sit in court
Sure.
for years and years and bleed you dry of any money that you
Well,
have.
and they're already serving customers, so
That's right.
the more they can delay.
Put it this way, between Tim and Sean, they'll know which way to go and the right way to go. And if you do hire them, you couldn't hire two, better people for experience to lean on, to call anytime. You have a question on something, so.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
No, I mean, really,
It's not review time yet.
I'm getting ahead. No, but I'm serious though. I mean, this is new. I've been living in town for about 50 years. So, and I've been over there for 31 and a half years almost. So I've been looking forward to getting something like this because I'm so sick of charter. My Wi-Fi kicks out once a week, and it's not like I have 20 people in my house, but
And Larry's been through the pivot training that we did, which educated him on how to stream, cord cut, talk about all this stuff, which is right. I mean,
it was very, very interesting.
YouTube TV has a huge amount of
The
content.
room, you guys would benefit immensely going to this room we have downstairs, because not only did you get everything done, but there's wallpaper that shows you how everything's hooked up.
We did some, it was actually before, the survey was done before I joined this committee, but the results of that show.
The poll survey?
No, this was a survey
like a
of
research
in town.
survey.
It was not very scientific, but we got 600, 700 responses, and a lot of people have already recorded. Way more than we expected,
So-
or at least than I expected.
So just to validate what you found in your survey, Westfield Gas and Electric did a survey back in 2014, and it was a big comprehensive survey. It was overwhelmingly positive towards doing this.
Yeah.
And customers, I mean, it got real detailed. I actually, you know, I still look at it once in a while. But the research is across the nation. That's why you're seeing these things pop up left and right. But if they're not managed properly, and you fail like Burlington Electric did, and they did a lot of things right, and they did a lot of things wrong.
But the wrong cost them so much money.
Yeah, you gotta know what you're doing because
Didn't they
it's
loan
huge risk.
themselves $17 million? There was a big illegal
They
funds transfer
engineered the
thing.
entire network to serve all the surrounding towns and built it as such
Yeah.
without securing the agreements with all the surrounding towns.
Okay.
And they just kept taking
I
money.
need somebody to say no and start barrel rolling that way, and you're not good.
Not when you made all the investment up front.
Yeah.
But we've read those papers.
Cover
We're
for
making
it.
sure we're transparent. All our costs, we've got them down. We've got them down to the T. I know how much per drop, how much per fiber hood it costs to construct now.
Oh, that really reminded me of a question I had earlier, which is hookups. So
Yeah.
are you, in the places that you're operating, are customers being charged for drops?
No,
So it's just free?
it's
That's
free,
just built
free
in.
everything, free installation,
Got it.
free router, and then we give them a survey when we're done, and the feedback has been very, very high.
So are you doing drops automatically, or are you doing drops just for new customers
Just for
within
new customers.
the fiber hood?
Yeah, it's
So someone signs up
Yep.
and you send someone out to do the drop
Yep, we do a
at a
pre-site.
cost of whatever, $400, $800, whatever that is.
Yeah, more than 800.
More
I'd
than
say.
800, okay.
Yeah.
There was a
Now-
recent article of some town around here that's doing this, was offering free drops, like a pre-sales way of getting people to sign up. Free drop. There was no guarantee that after that they were gonna pay for it.
I see.
And some of the towns.
I forget which
particularly
just the pre-sale
a lot of
incentive.
These hill towns, so I can use Leverett as a good
I
example.
know Leverett, it was expensive.
So on the initial build, all the drops were included because it was included under the bond. So if you signed up initially, you got a free drop.
I see.
If you were a new home that was built or you decided after the fact, you had to pay the full boat of whatever the
Which
cost
is a
of
few
the
thousand, I
install.
think, in Leverett, right?
There's just over 700 subscribers. There's
No, I mean, per drop, I think it was a few $1,000s, right?
a couple grand. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great way to do it, is if you sign up early, you get it free, you sign up later, it costs you. That will drive people to do it.
Yeah.
But would also potentially deter
Yeah.
uptake after that.
And it depends on how you structure your
That's right.
bonds. Your bond-
So that's why I,
Yeah, you want to.
I do everything free up front, free, I want to make it easy for customers because, it's
Maybe
hard to
after a
make.
decade you can change that
Yeah,
policy.
yeah, it's hard, customer inertia is something real.
Yeah.
Do you do
Don't get rid of
a
this.
promotional rate period like all the incumbents do? The first year or two, it's a
So-
lower rate?
So
or-
we're not right now, however, everything I read is that you should do promotional events. It's a very powerful tool, it works. And so I've been kicking that around. We did it in Westfield, and we gave the first month free.
Okay.
Right, and that was a good promotional tool. And in one neighborhood, I did Gig for Life. That's no longer on the table because it was a great deal. It was like $59 for a gig in one neighborhood.
Wait, is that grandfathered? The price will never go up? Is that
Never
what it
go
is?
up.
Wow.
But see, what happened was, so this
Who lived there?
We actually met one of them on Friday at the stroll.
That's right.
One of the ladies walked up to us and her daughter had it.
So it was my
Thank you,
idea.
Sean.
No, it was my idea, and the reason I did it is we didn't have any knowledge like we have today, and we were so scared, and we wanted this to be a
You
success.
just wanted to make sure you.
And I came up with a Gig for Life, and people jumped on it.
Yeah.
And it was in his neighborhood.
Then he moved.
Hey, I'm from Hoyer, but I live in Southampton, and so it's weird how I ended up here, but I'm here. But you raise a good point. Promotional marketing is important. It was in that research paper about Burlington Electric as well, that you should do promotional offerings.
And that's just, again, part of being flexible as you go
Yeah.
along and as you're working through each one of these steps,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The decisions that have to be collectively made and everyone has to agree.
Are any of the towns you're involved with doing any sort of subsidized rates based on income or disability or elderly or anything like that?
We are not right now. I'm not aware of that in Whip City Fiber in any of those towns.
Is it something you've considered doing,
I
or?
believe that there is like a town somewhere that does that
I know that the big incumbents do some of these things, and we need to look at this, and these are some of the areas that we're not big enough yet that we've gotten into it, but we probably should. And we'll probably be doing that soon, and I'll actually, I'll be assigning something like that to our marketing person to go do that. Go find out what programs are out there and what we can introduce here in South Hadley.
Right.
But it does come down to a sustainability question. So I'll give you an example. We have X 100 MDU multi-dwelling units in Holyoke. A lot of those places are served with a $10 Comcast internet. We will never compete with that. There's no way that we can justify that kind of expense or justify taking that kind of loss every month
Yeah.
because we're locally based. So everything revolves around the local community.
Yeah, and we've got to pay that $11 million back at some point, and so that poses a challenge.
So here's a question. $11 million, we're about the same size, so
Yep.
the total project cost
Mhm.
would be probably kind of similar. But given that we don't get it interest-free, we might be interested in bonding for the initial infrastructure and the cost of a couple fiber hoods and then
Right.
sort of incrementally building
Right.
out from there.
The make ready will be more too because of the poles. probably.
Yep, right, so,
Right.
just ballpark, what do you figure, like, what are we actually looking at bonding for here, We're sort of doing a comparable model.
Or do you have it broken down per fiber hood, like what each one would roughly be if we wanted to make that decision of an initial size to roll out?
We do have per fiber hood costs, but each fiber hood is different, and so it could help you, but it may not be the same cost that you're going to encounter. And what do I see for you? I mean, if you did a phased approach like you're describing, it makes sense to me, because then you could do 3 fiber hoods and say, okay, we had a 20% take rate. Can we be successful, with this project? That's a good idea to do a phased approach. But how do you bond for that?
Yeah, and it might make.
Right.
You have to borrow, not bond.
Might make it like a kind of it seems like we're treating some communities like better than others.
Right.
Well, I mean, the reality is some communities would have a higher take rate, and if you want
That's
to be,
right.
and some communities are denser and cheaper to build out, and if you want to do this in a sustainable way, the idea that you're going to be able to do everything at
Right.
once.
Well, did you tell them how you did the hood? By how people's interests?
Yeah, we did talk about that, we looked at all 32, we picked the highest interest, but we also look at construction costs. And we say, okay, this is underground, this one's gonna cost $350,000, this one's overhead, this is gonna cost $175,000. And so you've gotta factor in that, and these are all decisions you gotta make all the time. Westfield did a $15 million bond, did a portion of their city, they did, let's say 60%, and they still haven't bonded or are not gonna do this outer region here that goes out to Wyben,
Like my house.
like his house. But my point is, like, they're not even doing the whole town yet, they've done a portion, so you could bond for a portion of town, but you're gonna get that political pressure from people saying, well, why are you going here, and
And I hate
That's a real thing.
and going after more money,
Yeah.
is, right, it'd be much harder than to just bond if you're gonna say, we wanna build a town.
But the way we did it, that's how we explained it to the people. We have to explain it to the people when we're working out there, show interest.
Yeah.
Have your neighbors go online, and the more neighbors that go online, the quicker you'll get it.
It boils down to this, for all of you in this room, and the same thing I said to the board. It's a risk. This is a risky proposition, but it's your risk tolerance. You know, if this fails and you don't succeed, and you know you're stuck with that bond, that's the risk tolerance you have to have. But all indications are from the market research that you're going to be successful. You know, and you know, take rate is volatile. Take rate can change. You know, we're looking into 5G. What will 5G do to us? You know, I don't think it will cause any real severe problems for us, and I think it's going to be so far out, you know, for towns like ours and yours that it's not a big concern. But you got to get used to the fact that this is a risky proposition.
Now, do you see any strategic benefit in the fiber networks that you have in terms of 5G rollout and that being used as a backhaul?
Yeah, so 5G is dependent on
because my understanding
Our network's ready for 5G back.
Yeah.
So are you?
We got enough capacity.
Yeah, we can do backhaul for 5G once we're constructed.
Do you expect at some point that the Verizons and Sprints and T-Mobiles are going to come to you and say, we want to put this up on poles? Can we
Yes.
contract with?
They've already requested devices.
Comcast has already put their little things on our poles.
Yeah, they're already
Oh.
putting stuff up.
And are they using your fiber for backhaul?
They have their own fiber.
They have their own fiber. Yeah.
But if they want to get deep into the whole town, they're probably, I think it would be cheaper for them to come to us and say, can we lease some of your fiber?
Right.
But generally, it's a philosophical thing.
Right.
Verizons and Comcast
They're
don't
not
like to
gonna do
lease,
that.
they like to own their
They like to own.
assets.
Right. And
But-
if they're stringing up their own fiber for 5G, then all of a sudden they can compete with the,
Right.
with the MLP for fiber drops.
Certainly, always,
Right.
to Sean's point, always a risk.
Always a
This
risk.
is, telecom is a tough business.
Right. It's a race, as someone will put it, it's a race to zero, right? Because everybody's dropping their price, and it's like the Comcast business, you know, everybody's dropping their price, a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
And you gotta be in it for the right reasons. We're in it to develop the community.
Yeah.
You know, we're just fortunate that we have an MLP that had the financial means to do it. But we're also, we've got experience and we're doing it when we're making revenue and we're being successful. And so that's the difference, you know, and you're in a different position, you know.
What have you heard from businesses within South Hadley and maybe outside of South Hadley about this service being an economic driver, maybe helping businesses to move to South Hadley?
Yeah.
Have you heard interest from outside businesses?
So, not yet specifically, but in my former role in Westfield, we had business move in specifically for the bandwidth. And I forget, it was a digital imaging company, I think it was a production company that did movies, and they said, we gotta have this, and they moved here. You know of people, we've had people move into town in Westfield because of the fiber business.
We've had people start
Yeah.
bidding wars over houses because it was in a fiber serving area.
Right.
Yeah, I know
Because-
a guy who just bought a house in Westfield versus
Right.
Easthampton because.
Works from home, right? And so when you work from home, you need the bandwidth. And so we feel this is gonna happen. I met with one woman who worked for American Express, and she said the same thing. I gotta have this bandwidth. Can you get it to me tomorrow? Because she was, you know, files are going out, coming in every day. A lot of the businesses in the Village Commons are just coming on. We're hooking them up really fast. And a lot of them had point of sale problems, right? So they're in the middle of a transaction, boom, the internet goes down. They haven't had any of those issues with us. So they come on to us, they go, oh my God, it's night and day. So, you know, that's some of the feedback we've received. You know, people are coming in, we did an event, people from other towns are coming in saying, oh my God, I want this, can you come to my town? And that's what happens, you get that want, that desire.
And targeting your existing business community will also be critical to help supporting the residential driver, because your business services are gonna have much higher margins on them than your residential.
Do you have SLAs for business customers or for residential customers?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
So a residential customer, if there's a certain amount of downtime, then they're...
I don't know if we've got them on the residential, sorry. But
Okay, but on business, they do have...
generally,
SLAs.
residential's pretty, given, I mean,
It's
how
you
many
got
of
what
us
you
have
got.
dealt with the nightmare of of our existing internet service,
Yeah.
and how tolerant have we become over time?
true.
So
Yeah.
when you move to a different service, that kind of thought process doesn't even come into play, right?
Do you have a commitment to reaching every resident by the end of your construction?
Yes, we have a 5-year all-town commitment to do the whole town. The only complication is multi-dwelling units, that are owned by a, private group. And what we're doing with them is we're meeting with the boards and we're saying, you get the interest level to this level and we'll consider the construction. And that's important because you don't want to go and put $250,000 into a multi-dwelling unit and get 2 customers.
Right.
So we're not doing that. We'll say to the board, we've had multiple meetings, do you have the commitment, do you have the interest? And they express it, and then we'll do it in phases.
And that would be something like our Eastworks building?
Right.
Exactly.
Like that, okay.
But I think there's a huge appetite likely over here.
Especially Eastworks and
Yeah.
those mills.
Yeah.
One very soon, Eastworks, Williston,
Yeah,
all the little industrial park,
yeah.
which might be filled up once you get this.
Yeah, and that does drive business, people will come for that service.
And you
it
don't
does
have the same dependency. My thing is remote workers, getting people who are telecommuting.
Right.
You get 60 of those people, it's a more diverse base than, say, counting on one employer.
Right,
Um,
that's right.
You could lose 10 people, but you still have your other 50 there. Whereas if a company goes out of business, you lose all of them.
Right. Yep, great points, and all in support of. But it's hard making those decisions, and I feel for you. I know where you're at, and I wish you luck. And if you need any assistance, Tom, you have my number.
Absolutely.
Give me a call, and Tim and Hoyle Gas Electric, they're rock solid. They're a great partner. They're phenomenal. And I had to choose between them and my former coworkers, at Westfield, and it was a hard choice.
He made it hard. He put me through the ringer, man.
No, but it was partly cost, and and our geographic location, and just the team he's got. He's got a huge division over there, and his team has been around longer. And those guys are great over there. I'm not knocking them one iota. They're a great team, and I like them very much, and they're going to be successful anyways. But I like the relationship we had with Hoyle Gas Electric.
When it comes to the work and stuff, I'm amazed myself how much we've got so far.
Yeah.
We've gone pretty quick. Because what we do as linemen, we go ahead with the work. We have a contractor comes by, puts their stuff up, boom, they're done.
Yeah.
And there's just a few, under a couple underground neighborhoods, you're gonna run into a few problems every now and then, but.
Yeah.
Now, how significantly different would that be in a town where the town doesn't own the poles, like Easthampton? Like what you just described,
I'll answer that. Once the application to attach to the pole has been approved, it's not that much
It's
different.
not that different.
Because then I'm just sending crews to go do the same work that they're doing in South Hadley. The only difference is that they don't know your town like the back of their hand like they know South Hadley. But it's okay, there's a certified, qualified lineman.
Line works.
We're gonna have a fiber hood designed. And that's the other part, you have to have a good design. And once it's designed, you dispatch your linemen, they go, they do what they need to do, the messenger gets hung, and we run messenger and we lash to the messenger, so that you don't have this, right? Drive around, even in Easthampton, which I've seen, it's terrible. I've seen a line almost 8 feet from the ground. You won't see that in South Hadley. No way. Our lines are taut, straight. And so we take pride in our construction. Other towns, we won't name them, you'll see coils, right? Well, squirrels love those, right? So you won't see that in South Hadley. So we have some real quality craftsmanship going on, and it starts with the project management.
My question is the fire alarm on in this town?
Is that space occupied? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, is it on, alive? Because in South
I don't
Hadley, we don't
believe
have it
there's-
anymore, so we
there's
try to
nothing on
take the
that.
stuff off.
So there's no more pull boxes.
Because I see a lot of it up, but I don't know if it's,
There might be,
because it'd be easy to go up and cut it, and a lot of that stuff, well, from what I've seen, like on Ferry Street or College Highway, We could just go up, get that out of the way, and we're boom, we're going right down the
They
street.
used to use it in the 10 years I've been here, but I think when
Yeah.
they went to the
A lot of towns are
messaging
just
system,
phasing
they
it
got
out.
rid of the alarms, so I
Yeah.
remember them going off.
Because ours in South Hadley's been out for years.
Yeah.
According to the fire chief, it's not used.
Right.
So there might be some
You would know.
stuff up
Yeah.
there, but it's not being used at all.
Yeah, I
So
think
that'd
we
be
pulled
easy.
it
We
down.
cut it down, roll it up, throw it in a truck, and
Yeah,
go.
you guys pulled all the ones down.
Yeah, we pulled off the pipes and, well, the fire department's pulled off their boxes.
Yeah.
Now, is there any way that we could like go through the water systems because the town owns the water system.
Like undergrounds.
Yeah, and probably more expensive anyway, but.
Who was that? There was a place that went through the sewers.
Yeah,
that we looked at early
yeah,
on. It was
in
out
Oregon.
Pacific Northwest. Yeah, Oregon. Yeah.
They did that.
We wouldn't.
Yeah.
We don't
We'll be pulling that out. We gotta repair
I want to see the fiber splice.
it. Yeah. You can't smell anymore.
And we would advise against that.
See, we got a lot of spare pipes in town. Every time we run
Crowdsource it.
undergrounds, we have a spare
People
pipe.
running their own-
So if we had to run the primary and we pull it, makes it easy to pull it out, run another one in, fix it, make it, and now we're running fiber through it. And some of them are running now, it's an interduct.
Yeah, interduct.
If we have to go in underground with our secondary in the pipe, we put, they've used an interduct and we have to put the fiber through that.
Now, one question I have, why would we, to the extent that there is stuff on that fire alarm space, why would we even take it down if we can't use that?
You relieve space for the
Right.
40 inches.
You don't need it anymore.
Right.
And
It'll
it actually
make more
gains
room.
space now.
Yeah. That could, in a lot of
Yeah.
spots that I've seen, that could give us our 40 inches, no
Instead
problem.
of putting in a taller
Because the
pole.
hardware's still out there on Ferry Street, there's arms where, sticking out there, you just take the hardware off and you got make ready, boom, right down the road, hang a block, run a spider, it's in,
Right.
boom.
We'd be basically releasing that emergency space.
So we release it and then other people could put their stuff
They could
space
shift down.
to give us the
Changes the town
space.
space.
Yeah, all right.
Would that require like a town vote or something?
I don't think so, it's just,
No, just do it.
you just do
Like
it.
authorization from the fire chief.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think we'd have an issue.
I'm gonna ask you guys, because you're all here, and it's the next thing that we're gonna talk about, but as far as doing make ready and a poll survey, we're looking into doing some amount of that crowdsourced, because we have a pretty engaged town, and everybody's got smartphones, and, we could probably save a considerable amount of money by gathering a lot of that GIS data, or current condition data, or just height and all that stuff. Do you have any experience with poll survey stuff, or with any kind of crowdsourced poll survey stuff, or do it yourself in-house poll survey? Or?
So I have experience when Otis occurred and when I was an employee of Westfield. And they did a lot of the work themselves.
Okay.
They went to the polls and did it and it was okay, but I personally prefer a professional service done and that's my personal preference because it becomes a timing issue and you can't rely on the data being delivered on time and it's not as reliable.
Okay.
I mean, you might save some money, but I don't know that you'll get
And when
it.
questions pop up,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to meet Eversource, you're gonna have to meet Verizon,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to have a qualified engineer,
Yeah.
and you're all gonna have to huddle about who's paying for this pole replacement, well, no, it should be you, no, it
Right.
should be you, Verizon,
Yeah.
and all that stuff happens, and you times that by 4,000 poles, take about 5 to 10% of them that may be in dispute, you've got 200 to 400 poles
Right.
that you gotta do something with.
Yeah, and is there like, that poll data has got to be there in the companies that run the own polls?
You'd be
like-
surprised. The Verizon records, they'll tell you they got burned in a fire somewhere. They can't find their records.
Now, like, are the polls that are owned, are the polls owned by Eversource or Verizon or?
It's a mix.
Yeah, it's usually split.
Some.
No, it's usually a 50-50 split, so usually the electric will own the top half, the Verizon will own the bottom half, and then they'll do splits like I think a lot of the electrics do the actual pole replacements, the new pole replacements.
Yeah, when we
Whereas
get
the-
requests, it's
whereas
usually.
Like in South Hadley, down 116, splits the city in half, or town in half. And we do the right side ourselves, And if we have a pole hit on the left side, we have to call Verizon.
And wait.
And wait. And wait. I waited 5 hours one day for a pole that we had nothing on except figure 8 cable coming from Pine Shed.
But the difference is, to your question before, when you call us, we're pretty fast. We're there pretty quick. And, you know, and you got a lineman right here in town, for now.
He's already you're already getting a free make-ready device.
Yeah, there you go.
Device, right?
But we are gonna, when we do the make ready, we are going to have to pay Verizon and Eversource to come in and move their wires where there's a problem.
They'll give you an estimate.
Yeah, that's correct.
And per pole. And it averages out somewhere between $400 and $500 a pole.
Yeah, and it's you know, unfortunately it's costly, you know, and that's the advantage to our project. And but yes, that's correct.
But so the extra costs that we're going to incur that you don't is that plus we're going to have to pay a lease.
Yeah, I mean that's it, right? Is that, you know, you're gonna pay those extra costs plus you've got to pay your ISP, and so you know you got to pay us either a per subscriber cost or however we design it, and that's the difficulty. Or you do it yourself and you build it from the ground up and you own it, and that's a whole other cost structure, but you could do it that way.
But even if we do a share of each bill, you know, we also don't have any staff, so you know that kind of goes both ways.
Like, oh yeah, because you know it's taxing, right? You know, these guys work hard and it's a lot of work. And so, you know, if we were to have an agreement and we're your provider, you know, these guys take a lot of pride. They're going to work hard. They're going to spend a lot of time here and working. And you know, it's a big decision for you, but it's a big decision for ISPs like us to make this decision. You know, and that's why I say to you, I'm interested in Easthampton, but I'm not interested in undensed towns. You know, I don't want to chase a $1 bill with a $5 bill. I don't want to go doing, you know, very sparse installations. Right. You know, that lesson has been learned.
I think it's good for the town because we've always been Northampton's little sister, and it'd be nice to have one up on them.
Yeah, totally.
Well, here's the thing.
No, it's true. I mean, we got a lot of people coming from Northampton.
Let me, you know, I live in Southampton. I spent a lot of time in Easthampton, and the development in Easthampton is noticeable, and the growth in Easthampton is noticeable. And so this is another economic driver, and it also increases property value. And if you string your town with fiber, you are future-proofing your town. And you're saying, you're putting a stake in the ground, you're saying, we're here to stay with internet. And internet is going to be, it's the next utility.
Yeah, it's as important as electric and water.
To retain people.
What can you do without it?
To retain people, and watch what happens in the next 5 years when people's systems start crashing because they don't have enough bandwidth to watch television.
We've got a brand new high school, we're gonna have a brand new elementary middle school, which is already gonna add the assessments. And if you add this.
Yeah, and I applaud, you know, South Hadley for committing to it. Because their town's gonna be strong.
One other question. I know you'd mentioned at one point that you're not interested in working with more than one city at a time. Can you say are there any other cities similar to Easthampton that you are expressing interest in moving? That would be another model that we should...
Let me rephrase how I said that. At this time, because we're so new, you know, we're thinking strategically that a town like Easthampton is of interest to us. If that goes successfully and we staff up a little bit and another town comes calling and they're interested and we go, then we would be in a better position to maybe go at another town.
Yeah, I know that Northampton is going to the same position like
Aaron,
but at this point, you know, it's hard to say what will happen to us in the future, but if, you know, we go and we do this and we're successful with a town like Easthampton, then it's likely it'll spawn. And
I guess my question was more if it takes us a year to get to a decision, and in that time, say Northampton has approached you since they're on this similar loop,
Right.
and you went with them, is it a all or nothing kind of proposition that you're courting others and
No, I'm not, honestly.
there's a timeline, is that I guess what I'm asking?
Yeah, no, interestingly enough, I'm not talking to anybody right now. And we're only talking to you. And the only reason we're talking to you is because somehow Tom, I think, reached out to me, right? Is that?
No.
Or did I reach out? Oh, I reached out to Tom. Wait, no, hold on.
You reached out to Nicole, I think.
This is, no, this is how it happened. This guy over here is responsible for me sitting here. Honestly, because he lives in town.
Right.
And he somehow put me in touch with Tom. He said, call Tom. So I called Tom, and this is how this whole thing started. So,
Okay.
you
It was
know.
more just
Well, I
curious.
know that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
met through a friend of mine
But-
and seen her and just talked about the internet.
But my
and-
point is Larry's responsible for all of this. And to
Sorry.
put your mind at ease, I'm not, I'm not out there aggressively seeking it. My primary focus is get stuff highly constructed.
Yeah, I was more asking
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
at this
for another
stage,
one.
if this stage in your development, you would like to partner with somebody else and if there was
Not really.
multiple dance partners out there.
Not really.
Okay.
I want to be able to do a good job in one or two communities instead of doing a crappy job in 20.
Understood.
So as I said, we've just taken in an enormous amount of information to digest. We're approaching 2 hours now, and we have several other agenda
Yeah.
items we have to cover.
Yeah.
So are there any final questions for these gentlemen?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Oh, and we left some little swag bags over here, there's t-shirts in there. Don't worry, they're all under $50. We do the same thing, we know. But very nice to meet you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your time. Good luck. Give us a call if you need anything. Thank you.
Yeah, probably come,
Oh, yeah, yep, sure.
come and see the streaming center.
Yeah, for sure. A few of them. I have both Sheldon and Fibersonic cards. Thank you.
Yeah, see that little thing there underneath there, the second thing down? See what it says?
No signal?
No signal.
Good information. Need it. Sit around.
Is that the story of your life?
I think I've already got it. I got this guy that took me by his first name about 10 years ago.
It looks
talking to you guys.
Well, he got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Street.
Long time.
Nice to meet you.
Well, I don't know what's that.
This guy wrote this field notes books.
Regularly.
I remember one day I was friends with some day train on American, right in the middle of the trade.
Style.
Point.
No, it's nice, it's good.
Bear with me one second here as I tear down.
Very pro-friendly.
Did you unplug that cord behind you?
Absolutely.
Are we gonna be able to get to this stuff, or are we gonna put it on?
If anything goes too long, we can always.
I mean, the Fujitsu thing, we just
Yeah,
got
yeah.
the document today.
Yeah, no, that's just
So,
something we're-
look it over.
Right.
Dig into it.
Yeah, no, we're gonna keep this.
I don't have anything new to add about
Excellent.
poll survey stuff, so we can table that.
Yeah, okay.
I was looking around. There is space. I reached the same conclusion. Doing surveying with all the wires on it.
Yeah, the more I look up and I'm just like,
The problem with that alarm thing is that's,
Believe it or not.
and it's going to be hard to get that.
Thanks again.
Take care. Thank you for coming.
It runs fast enough for me.
I think the point
It's rising DSL that I got.
That's good enough for you?
Yeah, it runs good.
Hey, you're probably the only one on it.
It doesn't break down. It runs every day. They replaced the router, about
Send the guy over to Harry's house. Make sure.
So let's move on to our next agenda item.
Well, I'm gonna move that we table that, just because I don't have anything to
Nothing
add.
new? Okay.
If anyone else does, but I move that we table it.
No, that's fine.
Cool.
So, Charter Communications, they actually reached out to us, to the city, the mayor's office, and eventually trickled his way to me, and I was able to speak with the gentleman from Charter who's in charge of government relations. I have a little feedback that he had given to me, and he'd like me to share it with the committee.
Of course, is it you bed?
The fellow from Charter is greatly concerned that communities such as ours are being misled into thinking that this is a feasible, affordable, initiative. He pointed to communities such as Brattleboro as examples of failed MLPs.
Brattleboro or
Burlington, excuse me, Burlington, sorry. There was a quite lengthy study. I'm going to send it to you guys. I was able to find it by Professor Yu at UPenn. I think this gentleman referenced it several times, which had gone into why these models are not sustainable or not successful. I did also see some reviews of the studies which showed numerous ways in which it was improperly or questionably presented, some of the data. But that's not to say that there were not genuine examples of market failures that we definitely should look at and learn from.
Were these studies funded by?
As far as I can tell, I didn't see that they were. I wondered that as well. This was from University of Pennsylvania.
In the world of economics, where some of this might be taking part, and it might be in other places, but I can say this as somebody who's done academic work in economics. The obligation to disclose the source of funding for research is frighteningly lax. So, I don't know. That's all.
According to Professor Yu's study, he studied 20 different MLPs. He found that 18 of them had a payback of their loan that was over 100 years long. There were only 2 really genuinely successful examples that he found. But again,
What's the measurement of success? Is the measurement of success profitability, or like the money coming in, or is it the support of a town? Like that's
just paying back the bonding.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I mean, I think we all agree that you need to pay
Yes.
that. I mean, you can't just be assuming that, like, the next generation will pay.
Right. You can all agree that 2 out of 100.
That's not the
how it works.
2 out of 100 was successful. I mean,
I
come
know.
on.
That makes no
ridiculous.
sense.
That's stupid.
bullshit.
Yeah, hey, but we should look at it. We actually look at it though. The other thing that he mentioned was that internally Charter has, or they believe that they have the ability to do gigabit service over their existing copper cables.
They believe.
Did
Somehow they
did you ask
changed
them how
the
they raised my
laws of
monthly
physics?
fee again last month?
We did cover that actually.
They keep upping that
Claims that they're all
QAM
passed
protocol or
along.
whatever it's called.
This is from the
256.
content providers.
Alright.
But they also are working on providing up to 10 gigabyte speeds over existing copper cables. I don't know if that would even be safe with the power that it would require to do that.
Keep the fire department.
Wait, they said 10 gigabit
10.
speed over copper?
Over copper.
Smoking.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? Of these real old copper that's just run that kind of currency.
And they're
working on that.
they're working on it.
Yeah, that's not something that's currently existing, but he does believe, or
We're working on
he
it,
has
too.
indicated they can do up to. So Charter's also, they do have fiber deployment in certain areas when they're building to new communities. They are doing some fiber builds. That's not something that they publicize. Anyway, I'm going to forward you the research you pointed me toward. I think that we should look at it.
Absolutely.
I think it's
Yeah.
important. I really do.
I'd like to see that 10 gigabit service over existing coax.
You know, that's
I'd
probably
like to see them show up and say, we're cutting your rates to $40. You know, I don't-
Well, you know,
Reliability and cost.
And that's what our survey showed, is that people care about cost.
Exactly.
well, that's true. And the other thing that he said is that,
Especially
you
in
know,
Easthampton.
communities that might go ahead and do this may find themselves, you know, being severely undercut.
Well, I think that was always the expectation, so.
And what presented also.
That's not a bad thing for the town.
And end of the day, like, what we're doing here, we're doing some fact finding, we're making it a little bit easier, but there's gonna have to be like an actual market, you know, feasibility assessment at some point beyond just like our gut. And at that point, I think that we should make sure that feasibility assessment understands that, you know, the incumbents as profit maximizing publicly traded entities will do everything they can to play hardball. And
Maybe what our strategy should be to it seemed like we're rolling out a municipal internet, but just do it so that Comcast increases its bandwidth and drops its costs.
We can't control what Comcast does. We're trying to
So that was the extent of his outreach? Did he want to meet with those, or he just wanted to touch base?
He just wanted to touch base, see what was going on. You know, but he did say, and I thought it was very interesting, because the one stakeholder who has something to lose from us moving forward cautioned that this would be unfeasible. But also he claimed that those who may have something to gain, private companies or people who want to take, you know, some of our investment money, may be painting an overly rosy picture of how this might work out, you know, because they stand to profit from it as well.
The high-tech industry painting it over.
And I think it's worth mentioning, you know, as much as I think that a lot of that's, I mean, I have a lot of reasons to be skeptical about that stuff. I do think it's worth mentioning that everyone that we talk to who says, this is going great, this is amazing, you should partner with us, you know, they also have their, you know, I mean, and that's not to say that anyone is being deceptive or anything, but like everyone has their point of view, and everyone has their incentives for looking at and thinking about things the way they do.
It's hard to deny the momentum in the big picture right now, that all the towns around us are mobilizing to get this done.
Yes, no, I agree.
But I think the tenor of this conversation was definitely, I mean, I noted at the beginning, this felt like a sales pitch, whereas our early conversations with Westfield, before we ever did the vote, were very information sharing and very much in the spirit, although he's probably looking down the road at potentially
I
having
thought
us as a
Westfield
customer.
made it clear they wanted our business.
Yeah, but this one definitely, this was because of the momentum with the MLP.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have
Who went to the
to do more research work.
I didn't make it that one.
Yeah.
I kept. Did you go to Holyoke, right? Yeah. I mean, it was a whole nother notch up as far as the level of the presentation.
I do think that we, you know, and by the way, guys, this is our first time all being in the room since the vote, isn't it?
It is. Oh, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
But with those results, which, I mean, I expected it to win, but to be honest with you, like,
That was pretty great.
I was pretty stunned when I saw like the actual numbers come in. With those numbers and with the rest of the market of this world having seen those numbers, we can't expect that we're going to be treated a little bit differently from now on.
I mean, if we have another meeting, people will elected people will show up.
Right, it might be a slightly different game. So.
No, but I do think that we should be cautious of some of these outside for-profit companies who might come in and say, hey, pay us this money, we'll do you, you know, this study, and then pay us this money and we'll build you this network, and then you can just have it, and we'll take our 8, 10, or $15 million, and you'll have this real nice shiny toy.
Well,
Which guy do you think is more impressive? This guy
Who's
here or
going
the
to
guy
be a
from
long-term partner with us?
what impressed me is the network they have in place right now, and the levels of redundancy, and I mean, it's not even close, and I mean, we'd be tying into this thing.
Yeah,
you
they
know.
have a lot to offer.
And it's not lost on me that South Hadley really is very similar to us.
And they're moving.
So something that looks good
The biggest up they have on us is they have the money, as part of the MLP. But
Right, and that's just, but that's true wherever we go and whatever we do, that, that's gonna be a disadvantage that we have, so.
And I want to speak to one of the things that you brought up, which is, and it came up with them too, and in this committee before, is the idea of really it being a draw. I don't want to diminish that because I think it's true, but at the same time, if every community in an area has fiber, then you're not a standout. And so
Unless you're the only one that doesn't.
Unless you're the only one who doesn't, exactly, and then it's a whole different thing. So it is important, but it's also an arms race, and I don't think it's realistic to expect and to even try and sell a plan by saying like, we're gonna get all this amazing investment from outside. I think it's more about, this is what we need to do to serve the people in town who live here and work here already.
Right.
And not necessarily put our eggs in this like, we're gonna get this huge industry moving in and property values are gonna go through, it's more, it seems like there's a discordancy between everybody around us is doing it.
Demographics and land mass,
that's just
preclude that. We just don't have the space to grow much more. We're kind of pushing the bubble right now.
I mean, the conservative thing for us to do is to assume that none of that stuff happens.
Right.
That property values remain the same.
Right.
That a bunch of cool new businesses don't choose to locate here, and that we're just doing this because it's the right thing to do for our current residents. And that to not do it unless we feel very confident that we can pay back the bond to do it. And then if a bunch of really great stuff happens as a result, then sweet.
But it's gravy.
But there's definitely, I've seen a lot of infrastructure projects in reading about local government where they said, oh sure, this is going to cost a lot of money, we don't really know how we're going to pay for it, but it's going to jumpstart our economy and it's going to be great and then if it works, then that's super, but it often, sometimes it doesn't.
I think that's more, I can see how some of the, like Hilltown, it would be a boon for it because they don't have any internet right now.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
If I were still living in the hill towns, that'd be different. But anyway.
What are we gonna do about Fujitsu?
So Fujitsu, they're another group. They seem similar like Matrix One. Maybe they're a little bigger. Actually, they're a much bigger company.
I used to work. This is the same Fujitsu, Japanese.
Yeah.
The scanner made by Fujitsu. Okay.
So I was reached out to by this fellow from Fujitsu, who showed me that example of what a feasibility study or preliminary feasibility study might look like. They were interested. They heard about or saw about the MLP vote, and they wanted to connect with us and offer themselves as a potential partner as well. They do these fiber optic deployments for different, or are trying to get into this, or have done it for a few municipalities at least. And they had, for a report that I emailed you guys all what that looked like, that the cost to get something like that done for Easthampton done, I think was going to be about $16,000. That's an idea.
Million.
No, 16,000.
$16,000
For feasibility study.
Yeah.
I don't think I got that for some reason.
That's all? 16
This wouldn't be like the full breakdown and engineering plan of the city. It would be
I think the one that Northampton did was $60,000.
I don't know what Northampton did. That's not really relevant to us.
I don't know why. There was a guy who called me a little while back, and it was he wanted to get lunch, but he was involved with helping Chicopee out, and that was, it really didn't go anywhere, which is why I haven't brought it up. But he was saying that same sort of study, he was putting it in a little bit higher, in the 20 to 30 range, but so maybe 16. He was the one, this is where I was going with all of this. He was saying that a lot of those studies that people do, they load up with a lot of things like customer surveys and stuff like that that end up being very, very expensive. But that if you just extrapolate from comparable, like local towns with similar socioeconomic profiles and say you probably get kind of the take rate that you're seeing in Westfield or South Hadley or Chicopee, then you can skip about half the cost. So that might explain where the difference would be between
Do
60,000.
those studies become part of the public record once they're paid for?
Yeah, the city owns it, so yes.
So it just, you can request it or you can.
Yeah.
On the file server.
It seems
Yeah.
what we've been doing for the last year covers about half of the feasibility study already, speaking of Tom's point about,
Yeah.
we're
Right. But at some point, we're going to have to figure that out. I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to consider Fujitsu or anybody else, but it's not really up to us at that point. It would be up to the mayor. But I think we are at some point. I don't think we're necessarily there yet, but at some point before all too long, we might be at the point of going to ask the city for a little bit of money to actually bring some professionals in.
That was my next question under new business, is exactly when does the city kick into gear on this stuff,
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
the
what-
mayor's...
What is your feedback from the mayors?
Report has to be done, right?
Yeah, I was gonna actually bring that up for new
Yeah,
business too.
we're technically behind on the report, but that's fine. I mean, the ordinance that we have basically says if you can't finish the report in a year, let the city council and the mayor know, which I believe we have done. So I think we're fine.
So rather than getting a lot of people in here to go over a lot of issues we were talking about 9 months ago, and I think this was a great presentation, shouldn't we be shifting our focus to this report to keep things rolling here?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so. That's a really good point. We should, maybe that's our next meeting, is to really sit down and lay out what that's going to look like and how we break that up and what's in the report and what should be in, but we don't have the ability to do it.
Yeah, even if we just start the process now, that
Get an
report
outline of
is
what-
critical.
What we know, what we need to report, and what gaps there are in between those things.
Do we want to do a divide and conquer on that?
I think we're
Well,
gonna
like we
have
did,
to,
yeah.
but otherwise.
We have a
We'll
good
have
team here, and we're pretty
subcommittees.
good at subdividing tasks.
Yeah, we might actually have to do something like subcommittees,
For better
just so
or
that we
worse.
can.
Sounds like a master plan.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, yeah.
We have unknown unknowns, known unknowns, and known knowns. Yeah.
Do we have anything to start with? Is there any synopsis of what we were talking about, or is this something somebody or two people should sit down and come
Just
up
our
with an
minutes, right?
outline?
Yeah, we got minutes and videos.
Right.
I think some of us have notes from different meetings we've had with
Sure, yeah.
HG&E and Westfield, and we can always reach out to
Sounds
those
like we need
folks
a
for
subcommittee
questions.
then.
You know what else we're gonna need, actually, probably, is a sense of like, what did this look like in other communities? And maybe that's something where I can reach out to Sean or the Whip City guys and say like, when you were having these conversations,
Is there a template?
like, what's the template? And then we can fill in, here's the stuff we already know. Or here's the stuff that we already know, So like, we don't know the cost, but neither did they really. Like, we know a range.
He was talking about the business plan, so
yeah.
I'm sure they have something like this to proceed with the business
But,
plan.
yeah, but then like,
So
what
you
is
saw
it?
the similarities there of
Yeah.
the town
Yeah.
and 11 million. It's like
It's useful research.
that's a
to
really
get that deck.
solid, creates
Yeah.
a really solid circle around what the overall
I
cost.
think it might be useful to look at the thing that was done in Northampton, because Northampton does not have a municipal plan. I do not believe. I'm not exactly quite sure the scope of that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, any sort of documents we get, including from communities that chose
So
not
what
to
did
do it.
Northampton had a feasibility study?
Yeah.
Have there been
Looking for?
communities that?
Okay.
Oh wait, didn't somebody just take the money from Comcast?
Some of the hill towns,
community
to be
looked
frank,
at it.
I love the hill towns. I don't think we should even be looking at the hill
No,
towns. But it was one of
just
the
as
hill,
one of the hill towns
Yeah.
had like we
Couple
can
of
spend this and get our own, or Charter was like, or we can put
Took the buyout.
invest. Yeah,
Was that
we can invest
Vermont or
this.
Charlotte? It was one of the
Charlemont, maybe?
Yeah, I think,
It might have been Charlemont.
That was a few months back.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I remember the town
They
meeting
were
is
going
where
against
they-
the flow,
Yeah.
but everybody's different.
But that's not wouldn't be bad to reach out to somebody might have a
Yeah.
well argued case for why that made sense for them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that that's,
Telephone poles.
maybe that's something we can do in the meantime, is if we can figure out, and just without deliberation, just circulate any sort of document that
All right.
sort of roughly matches what our own charge is, then we can figure out, like, what have we already figured out? What can we figure out? What are we probably gonna need someone to, like, pay someone to figure out? And then that'll help us clarify to, I mean, I think in terms of getting this out at a reasonable pace, probably the quickest way to do it is to identify those things early so that we can make an ask early, so that we can work on the stuff that we can work on while all that is happening.
Yeah.
So should we come to the next meeting with some kind of draft of a
Or at
table of
least-
contents, or like some kind of like
Yeah, I guess
2-level deep outline of
what is the
what
scope
each of
of
us-
the, you know, I know we've been working towards a report to the mayor.
Right.
Is there any guidance on what that document is, or it is a?
It's in the ordinance. I don't have it memorized.
Right, that's what I'm asking, to what extent?
Yeah.
I mean, is it a document to the mayor that says it is worth pursuing public broadband, end of report? Or, you know, is it like a guidance document just says there is interest in Easthampton to pursue
Right.
broadband and our mandate is completed? Or are we supposed to present a document outlining these are the 5 options, this is the one we recommend to you to recommend to pursue, you know, like what is the scope of our...
I'm gonna guess that the more, the better.
I think the language is pretty broad, and we can probably sort of figure out how we see
The
this.
first part of what you're talking about would probably be our survey, you know, the data that we've already gathered, yada, yada. We could, I think we've already talked, you know,
But
people, the
I
I know what you're
guess
saying.
my
You're
thing is I don't
saying-
want to overdo it. If it's literally just something that's going to go to the mayor that says there is interest, and then she will act on it and appoint a new commission to form the MLP
Sure.
and do the market research. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
is that beyond our scope?
Right. I think we need to regurgitate everything we've learned and like the fact, like here's the marketing demographics, here's how other communities have done it, here are potential partnership arrangements, here's everything that we, and then like here's, or earlier on, here's the demographics of the town and here's what we think
Right,
we need to
but
do.
I guess my question is that beyond what we are scoped to do, and the municipal light plant
Right.
development board would actually handle all that research?
Or
and
an
do-
MLP
and-
board.
An MLP board would actually do
should at least
the...
come up with a 4 or 5 page report, but not go down. the
I'm saying a
rabbit
4 or
hole.
5 page
Yeah.
report versus a 200 page.
Absolutely. No, I think that
I
would
kind
be
of feel
stupid.
like the purpose of this group is to
You know what I mean? Like,
to determine the feasibility, and like this group is here to determine the feasibility. The board, the other board would be to actually implement it.
right,
but there's feasibility.
But we're now talking about doing market research and paying a consultant. I think that's outside of us. That would be the purview of...
I mean, potentially, I mean, it's kind of up to the mayor.
Or
I
do we,
can-
do we need
that's-
more clarification from the mayor saying, yes, I am expanding your scope to involve...
Right, I mean, I
market
think
research.
that's our ordinance, I think the ordinance as written,
I honestly have not read the ordinance,
Okay.
so...
I
if we-
can,
maybe we
yeah,
should just
I don't,
circulate that and...
I could pull it up, but it'll take me a minute. I'll circulate it this week,
Yeah.
but it's broad. So I think part of it might be, in the meantime, me checking in with the mayor,
Right, even if it's just semi-informal of...
just to
of us,
see, yeah, like what level are you looking for here? And there's definitely at some point we're gonna have to spend money.
Right.
And well, this is the tough part, right? At some point, we're gonna have to spend money prior to bonding.
Correct.
That's the thing because once we've bonded, then we have
Funds.
money,
Yeah.
right? But
Well, it's
there's
like any other sales pitch. We
Right.
just have to make it
Well-
seem important and worth it. And
Would we bond, would we do a pulse survey before or after bonding?
well, so those are the kind of things.
Yeah. Well, I would think
Like
that's before.
there needs to be, yeah, I would think
The
before.
city would have to commit some money for the make-ready costs with whole survey.
Right, because I think that we would
You wouldn't
need,
know the bond.
there has to be some, like, I mean, I don't even know if someone would issue you a bond on something if there wasn't like a certain amount of a study.
Also, just to circle back, I mean, are we considering this still under new business, or are we now into a deliberation that's not on the agenda?
Yeah, that's fair
Yeah.
enough.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I think we've shaped up what new business we have to
Your
talk
point is
about.
good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to find out about this feasibility study from Northampton. You're gonna follow up with Sean, and just to gather, it sounds like what we're gonna do is gather information, but do nothing formal, and at the next meeting, we'll start putting our heads together
Yeah,
about
we'll
this.
Yes.
And you will have talked to the mayor by that point if possible.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, the old city hall down the street here,
Right,
they're planning on reconditioning that thing,
right,
okay? For like $4 million.
more than that.
No, that's just on our end of it.
Right, yeah,
They're gonna get another $4 million from private donations,
right.
okay? Well, they're planning on bonding that. No, the question I have is how's that gonna tie into something like this?
Well, it's just gonna decrease the appetite for bonding.
yeah.
I mean, how would they be, you know what I mean?
If they, yeah, it wouldn't tie in at all other than just,
We're gonna go from 11 safe on this end, and they're gonna go like from 4 on that end.
That's the
How does
first
that
I've
get
heard
paid?
about bonding for Old City Hall. This is,
Yeah, and I feel like
maybe we're
that's
getting
kind
way
of a
off
separate.
topic here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we really, the MLP, it will be completely separate from the rest of the town.
What's that?
And so,
Stuff
like,
showing up. We need it.
I'm just wondering how it get paid. I mean, I know it's separate.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we have to look at various debt structures and whatever.
Right.
And these are just the questions that they're hoping we can provide some answers on. How have other people done this?
Is there a way that we could bring someone in who is an expert on municipal bonding and the options that are there and what exactly needs to go into
somebody in
that?
Yeah,
EDLC.
our assistant city planner. I think.
Yeah. So can we have,
Jeff,
would that be a good person to bring in?
Well, our old finance director, Melissa, that was her area.
Or there's
specialty.
there's someone within the treasurer's office who looks at a
Right.
lot of this stuff who might have some
Who
ideas.
can answer
I'll
questions
ask,
about
We
the
talked
mayor.
about the very thing on the CPA, okay? I'm on a CPA. And we're talking about the money we're borrowing from the city hall.
Right.
And that whole thing, all of the cost, depending on how long you take it out for, 5 years, 10 years, 15 or 20 years. That 20-year bond, you're paying back almost twice as much as you're borrowing.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had all the thing all worked out. Danny Riskin talked about
Yeah.
that.
All right, so there's a lot we're gonna have to go over.
Yeah.
I get,
So
this is a,
We're moving
this
straight,
is where we
yeah.
moved off the,
Right now.
Well, we've established some
Yeah.
topics for the next agenda.
yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Is there any new business?
I think we're
Okay.
very thorough this month.
All right, guys.
Thanks for setting that up.
That's great.
Super helpful.
So
That was a
Yeah.
really good presentation. I was impressed.
Really good.
All right.
Great.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Anyone second, please?
Second
Seconded.
motion.
All in favor?
All right.
We adjourn.